Chapter 786. Brother Gu, it's really you. Little Meng and Gu Chongqing had interacted with each other during several samsara missions. Little Meng and Gu Chongqing were friends. Seeing Gu Chongqing arrive, Little Meng happily went to greet him. Master Zhending, we meet again. Gu Chongqing got off the horse and greeted Little Meng with a smile. Actually, Gu Chongqing was not as happy as he looked. Instead, he was depressed, because his plan had been completely disrupted. According to Gu Chongqing's original plan, he would release Arhat Taming Dragon, and Arhat Taming Dragon would kill Crying Elder. Then everything would be easy to solve. Even if Arhat Taming Dragon did not take action, Master Xian Ci would be able to deal with the Crying Old Man's disciples and grand disciples and kill Evil Saber Zhe Luoju with ease. However, he did not expect Arhat Taming Dragon, a Dharmakaya master, to make such a mistake. He took Xian Ci and ran away, leaving Zhen Ding and Zhen Hui here. He could not play this game anymore. Although he knew that Arhat Taming Dragon would be uncontrollable once he was released. But wasn't this blunder a little too big? Without Xian Ci, the strongest support in the plan, the rest of the plan could not be carried out. More importantly, Gu Chongqing did not save Zhen Hui on purpose to drag Xian Ci into this. Instead, he pretended to kill a group of horse gang and let Zhen Hui escape with the sky-throwing Ho Tribulation. This was not a big deal. As long as Xian Ci was free, the problem could be solved in minutes. Moreover, if Xian Ci was angry, Zhe Luoju would be killed by him. This plan was perfect and would not bring any harm to Zhen Hui. However, the perfect plan was completely ruined. When his plan failed, Gu Chongqing's feelings were indescribable. Gu Chongqing was a kind and upright young man after all. When he realized that his plan had failed and Zhen Hui was involved, he was filled with regret and hatred. He chased after Zhen Hui. However, it was too late. Things have actually returned to their original path? Gu Chongqing was speechless for a long time. The scene in front of him was the same as the future he saw. Other than Crying Elder being killed, there was almost no change. Zhen Hui was captured, but Zhe Luoju was still alive and well. The danger of the family's destruction was still there. The mastermind behind this was all smiles. Young man, Zhe Luoju is my target. By trampling on Zhe Luoju, he had made a name for himself, and Glacier Swordsman by Zhe's name had shaken the Jianghu. That was my plan. I can't let you kill Zhe Luoju. When there is a conflict between the host's plan and the mastermind's plan, the mastermind's plan will naturally prevail. Wasn't this a very normal rule? Brother Gu, just now, Little Meng pointed at the pile of corpses on the ground and asked Gu Chongqing. In Little Meng's opinion, with Gu Chongqing's ability, it should not be difficult for him to stop Yuan Mengji, the sky-flipping roar, who had reached the consummation of 9 apertures. I am ashamed. Gu Chongqing's face was full of guilt as he let out a long sigh. I was too inexperienced in Jianghu. I fell into the trap of the sky-flipping roar and failed to save the little monk Zhen Hui. Although these words were not true, the shame was real. Although Gu Chongqing's strength was not as strong as Little Meng had imagined, he was not able to scare the siren of Grand Luo away. However, after exchanging for the Chongqing sword scripture, it was not difficult for Gu Chongqing to kill the sky-flipping roar and save Zhen Hui as long as he exerted all his strength. The enemy is cunning. Brother Gu, don't blame yourself. Little Meng felt relieved. No matter how powerful Gu Chongqing was, he was still a young man about the same age as him. He was not a wily old man in Jianghu. It was not impossible for him to fall into a trap. Master Zhending, don't worry. I will do my best to save the little Master Zhen Hui. These words were extremely righteous, impassioned, and righteous. He was simply a hero who would do anything to help others. He was simply a Jianghu chivalrous man who would help others when he saw injustice. With Brother Gu's help, there is nothing to worry about. Little Meng was very grateful for Gu Chongqing's righteousness. There was only a wrong name, but no wrong nickname. Howren Chongqing Gu Chongqing was indeed full of heroism, righteousness, and righteousness. The sky-flipping roar, Yuan Mengji, captured little Master Zhen Hui and escaped into the Immensity Sea. I was born in the Immensity Sea Golden Sand Oasis, so I am very familiar with this area. The sky-flipping roar cannot escape. Gu Chongqing mounted the horse. Let's go. Let's go and save little Master Zhen Hui. Okay. Little Meng was overjoyed. He was about to move when he suddenly realized he did not have a horse. I only prepared one horse. Gu Chongqing's original plan didn't include saving Zhen Hui at all, because if Xian Xi helped, there was no way Zhen Hui could be kidnapped. It is easy to buy a horse in Quicksand Town. Let's go and buy one. Lightness skill was only suitable for short bursts. It was more convenient and less tiring to ride a horse on a long journey. Gu Chongqing turned the horse around and was about to go to Quicksand Horse Market to buy a horse for little Meng. Nay. At this moment a horse neighed. In the stable of the Immensity Ocean No. 1, a majestic horse with snow-white fur without the slightest blemish slowly walked out. It was extraordinarily majestic, and it neighed like a dragon. The sound of hooves clattering could be heard as it slowly walked out. On this snow-white horse, a handsome figure in snow-white clothes sat upright on the saddle. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and he was extraordinarily handsome. The man was like an immortal, and the horse was like a dragon. It was too much to look at. Little Meng suddenly felt like he was walking barefoot in the mud, and there was a super sports car beside him. The feeling in his heart was indescribable. You are Bai Zhe? Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe? Gu Chongqing, who was also from the western region, had heard of this young master, Glacier Swordsman, who had emerged recently. Seeing Bai Zhe's appearance, which was exactly the same as the legendary Glacier Swordsman, Gu Chongqing quickly recognized him. That's me. Glacier Swordsman nodded and waved his hand indifferently. I have a horse. You don't have to buy one. A horse neighed. Another horse trotted out from the stable behind him. It was equally majestic, equally tall and powerful. But this was a black horse. You want to cause trouble for Zhe Luoju? I have a score to settle with him too. This horse is for you to use. Bai Zhe nodded at the two of them and waved his hand. The majestic black horse let out a long neigh and ran up a few steps before stopping beside Bai Zhe. Thank you. However, in little Meng's mind, the most ideal mount was, of course, that snow-white horse. But this was not the time to be picky. Someone was kind enough to give you a horse, and you're complaining that the color is not right? You're asking for trouble. Little Meng mounted the black horse and bowed to Bai Zhe and Gu Chongqing. Thank you for your help, brothers. With Brother Bai's help, we can do this. Gu Chongqing was very surprised by Bai Zhe's arrival. With Bai Zhe's help, this matter would be resolved much more easily. From today onwards, I will test the world. I will ride the martial world. With a hearty laugh, Bai Zhe whipped the horse and charged forward like a ray of white light, galloping across the land. Brother Bai, you are indeed exceptional. Little Meng was envious of the white figure in front of him. And so, the three of them, who were cheating, began to wreak havoc on the world. Chapter 787. This is the Che Lai Gorge. Half a day later, the three of them arrived in front of a precipitous canyon. The sun was setting in the west, and the sky was dark. The temperature in the desert dropped sharply, and the wind was cold. The cold wind blew through the gorge, making a whimpering sound as if ghosts were crying and wolves were howling. The gorge in front of them was very steep, as if an immortal had cut open a towering mountain with a sword. The narrow and deep gorge had steep cliffs on both sides like a thin line of sky. Gu Chongqing pointed to the Che Lai Gorge and said, If Yuan Mingji wants to send Master Zhen Hui to Evil Ridge and hand him over to Evil Blade Zhe Luoju, he will definitely pass through this way. Mr. Gu is right. Glacier Swordsman added, Yuan Mingji's route must be through the Che Lai Gorge, taking the route from White Mountain to Fish Sea. This is the quickest and safest way. Quickest? Safest? Little Meng was stunned. Isn't the Immensity Sea the territory of the horse gang? Why are they worried about safety? Ha ha! Gu Chongqing shook his head with a smile. Master Jinding, you really don't have the self-awareness of being from a famous sect. You are a disciple of Shaolin, a famous sect with a Dharmakaya master like Luohan taming dragon. Is this a sect that ordinary people can afford to offend? Gu Chongqing was not lying at all. Sky-flipping Ho Yuan Mingji might be domineering in the Immensity Sea. In front of a famous sect like Shaolin, he was even less than an ant. He did not dare to disobey Xie Dao Zailuoju's order. Even Ma Zi had the guts to attack Monk Zhenhui of the Shaolin Temple. If he did not quickly send this hot potato out, quickly get the reward from Zailuoju, and quickly hide, should he wait for the righteous Jianghu heroes to kill the evil? So, I have such an identity. At this moment, Little Meng suddenly felt like an employee of a state-owned enterprise working in a private workshop. This identity of Shaolin is actually a golden signboard? Unfortunately, I can't always be a bald thief. It's a pity that I can't have both. Several ideas flashed through his mind, but white clothes and frosty sword chi was more attractive. The golden signboard of Shaolin Temple would not last for more than a few days. Little Meng had already made up his mind. After rescuing Zhenhui, he would seize the opportunity to leave Shaolin Temple and become a young Jianghu hero whose clothes were whiter than snow. There's a group of desert bandits here. The leader of the Che Lai Gorge, bloodthirsty sword Shen Zue, has opened 6 apertures. When Yuan Mingji passed by this place, he would definitely meet him. Therefore, we have to greet this bloodthirsty sword. Gu Chongqing patted the horse with his scabbard and galloped towards the mouth of the gorge. Bloodthirsty sword? I want to see how capable he is. The glacier swordsman's face was grave and stern. He urged his horse forward and also charged towards the mouth of the gorge. Hey, aren't you guys afraid of an ambush? Before Little Meng could finish his sentence, Gu Chongqing dashed into the gorge. He waved his sword, and a ray of white sword radiance shot out of it. Ah! With a blood-curdling scream, a few mounted bandits who were lying in ambush at the mouth of the gorge were beheaded. All right, I didn't say anything. Little Meng shook his head and urged his horse forward. He also rushed into the gorge. An ambush. It depended on one's strength. In front of Gu Chongqing and Bai Zhe, such an ambush was nothing. Sword radiance flashed in front of them, and the mounted bandits fell to the ground one by one. The white sword radiance was strong and upright. The sword radiance was bone-chilling and could freeze everything. The sword radiance whizzed through the entire mouth of the gorge. In a moment, the 3 of them rushed into a mountain village and saw the so-called bloodthirsty sword Shen Zui. Who are you? The 3 murderers descended from the sky and killed their way in. No one could stop them. Shen Zui, the bloodthirsty sword, was shocked. Don't be nervous. We're just here to ask for directions. Gu Chongqing nodded with a smile, but the sword radiance in his hand did not stop. He did not show any mercy. Ask for directions. Shen Zui was shaking with anger. Even if you want to make up a lie, at least make up a better excuse. How could someone ask for directions like that when they came up to him with a knife? This righteous-looking guy was ruthless and merciless. The one in white was even more ruthless. His long sword seemed to be made of ice, emitting a blue light. No matter what it was, it froze everything into an ice sculpture. As for the monk, he killed people with his knife. He did not have the compassion of a monk at all. In a moment, the 3 devils wiped out the entire mountain village. The mounted bandits who had some strength and dared to fight were all killed. The rest of the bandits scattered. All right, now we can talk calmly. Little Meng raised his bloody Buddhist commandment blade and smiled. He thought of a famous saying in his previous life. Studying is to talk to idiots calmly. Working out is to make idiots talk to you calmly. This saying was very applicable here as well. In order to make the bloodthirsty sword calm down and talk honestly, of course, he had to teach him a lesson. I want to know something. Which road did Yuan Mingji take? How long has he been gone? Little Meng asked with a smile, wiping the Buddhist commandment blade on Shen Zui's brocade robe to remove the blood on it. You are really asking for directions. The bloodthirsty sword Shen Zui was stunned and suddenly felt like crying. If you want to ask for directions, you should have told me earlier. How can you ask for directions in such a bloody way? If I tell you, can I live? At this time, Shen Zui still wanted to escape. Although the hope was slim, he had to try. No. Bai Zai's face was cold, and his voice was so cold that it seemed to freeze his divine soul. But you will die more quickly. Since I will die whether I tell you or not, why should I tell you? Shen Zui straightened his neck and answered with a sneer. A mounted bandit who lived with blood on his blade had long been a desperado. Even though Shen Zui had made a lot of money these years and had planned to retire from Jianghu and live a rich life, he was still a desperado. That's a good question. Little Meng laughed and pointed at the animal pen in the stockade. There are pigs in the stockade of a big stockade? There are a few boars too? She wondered if these boars were also masculine. I'm curious. Big guy, can I test it on you? Shen Zui trembled and his face turned pale. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. This kind of threat was too terrifying. Gu Chongqing's scalp tingled. Even the cold-faced Bai Zai's mouth twitched a few times. Without a trace, he quietly took a few steps back and distanced himself from Little Meng. Fish sea. Yuan Mingji went to Fish sea. Shen Zui quickly gave the answer. Big guy, you are very cooperative. I won't humiliate you then. I won't see you off. He swung his sword and cut through Shen Zui's throat. He fell to the ground and died. Shen Zui has collected a lot of good things these years. We are heroes, so we have to eat, right? Little Meng searched the mountain village without hesitation. There was one refined weapon, which was Shen Zui's bloodthirsty sword. There were 3 land deeds in River East, 2 house deeds in Luoyang, and a bag of gems. Other than that, there were a few manuals for aperture awakening. Everyone has a share. Little Meng handed out the loot as if he was dividing up the loot. I'm going to the central region. I need a place to stay. Bai Zai reached out and took one of the Jiangdong land deeds and put it in his bosom without hesitation. I'm going to Luoyang too. I need a place to stay too. Gu Chongqing also took a house deed in Luoyang. The rest was Little Meng's loot. No wonder so many young heroes like to be heroes. This is worth it. The loot this time was enough for Little Meng to travel for a few years. He would not have to worry about money. Chapter 788. The Fish Sea was a large lake in the Immensity Desert. The misty Fish Sea nourished a vast land. This was a rare water town. The grass was green and the forests were green. The land was full of vitality. Compared to the desert in the Immensity Sea, the Fish Sea was like the Jiangnan water town in the western region. I didn't expect the Immensity Sea in the western region to be like this. As soon as they entered the Fish Sea, the moist water vapor hit them in the face. It was refreshing, as if the dry land was finally receiving rain. The scene before them was like the hinterland of the Central Plains, not the Gobi Desert or the Immensity Desert. This made Little Meng click his tongue in wonder. The Fish Sea is one of the most prosperous places in the Immensity Desert. Gu Chongqing rode forward and pointed at a huge city in front of them. He smiled at Little Meng. That's Fish Sea City. Doesn't it look like the architecture of the Central Plains? It's called Little River East. Little Meng followed Gu Chongqing's finger and saw the city in front of them. He was also amazed. But he did not think so. How could this run-down city be one of the most prosperous places? Have you heard of a city with tens of millions of people? As for the cold-faced Bai Zhe, he did not even bat an eyelid. To be fair, the Fish Sea city was not bad. The city was dozens of miles wide, with rows upon rows of houses, buildings, and people. It was a bustling scene. There were merchants from the Central Plains, Western region barbarians, immensity desert vagabonds, and many scantily clad, sexy Hunyang. Unsightly. Unsightly. Gu Chongqing shook his head and sighed. He sighed helplessly, as if saying, public morals are degenerating day by day. But his eyes kept glancing at the sexy Hunyang. Young man, you're too inexperienced. Little Meng secretly despised him. Unsightly? Have you heard of transparent clothes? Have you heard of hollowed-out fishing nets? Have you heard of short skirts? As for Bai Zhe, he did not even bat an eyelid. He was even more qualified to despise him. Young man, have you heard of lustful demons? Have you heard of succubi? The master of the Fish Sea, Bai Bajing, is also a man of great talent and strategy. As a member of the Immensity Sea, Gu Chongqing was no stranger to the Pearl of the Immensity Sea, Fish Sea. However, when he mentioned Bai Bajing, the Lord of the Fish Sea, he glanced at Bai Zhe, the Glacier Swordsman. There weren't many people with the surname Bai in the western regions. Are you two related in some way? I was born to the north of the Ice River, the Tsangyue Bai clan, the Orthodox Han clan of the Central Plains. Unlike Bai Bajing, a barbarian with a Han name, Bai Zhe replied with a proud expression. So it's the Tsangyue Bai clan. My apologies for not recognizing you. I am from the Golden Sands Gu clan, and I am also of the Orthodox Han bloodline. Gu Chongqing felt a sense of kinship towards Bai Zhe, who was also from a Han family and came from a barbarian land. He looked at Bai Zhe with a sense of familiarity. Yes. Bai Zhe nodded faintly, still maintaining his indifferent and cold appearance. Bai Bajing has always admired the style of the Central Plains. Most of the buildings in the Fish Sea imitate the style of the Central Plains. It's called Little River East. Gu Chongqing had heard of the Glacier Swordsman and knew that he was cold, so he didn't take it seriously. As they walked, he introduced the situation of the Fish Sea city. Bai Bajing was the master of the Fish Sea, a master of the consummation of 9 apertures. He had a wide circle of friends and was on good terms with several horse bandit leaders. In fact, with his strength, there was no way he could occupy the prosperous Fish Sea. Not to mention Zhe Luoju, an exterior bandit leader who dominated the Immensity Sea. The likes of Yuan Mingji alone was enough to make him suffer. However, it was said that Bai Bajing was related to Mengnan, the prime Ashura of the Ashura Temple. With Mengnan, a Dharmakaya master, backing him, even if Bai Bajing was only at the consummation of 9 apertures, he had the capital to occupy the Fish Sea. It's indeed like the atmosphere of the River East. Little Meng nodded in agreement. In front of them was a scene of white walls, green tiles, heavy eaves, and many buildings. It was exactly the same as the architectural style of the River East. The Fish Sea is such a big city. We have to find a place to gather information. After chasing Yuan Mingji all the way to the Fish Sea, Yuan Mingji and the others disappeared like streams flowing into the sea. Little Meng looked around, planning to find a tavern to gather information. Fish Sea is a place where people from all walks of life gather. We'll only expose ourselves if we ask around. Gu Chongqing reached out and grabbed Little Meng. I'm familiar with this place. It's a good place to gather information. It's very safe there. Old Chow's Tavern, Drunkard Xie. Glacier Swordsman said in an indifferent tone. Brother Bai, you know it too. Gu Chongqing smiled and nodded. He turned his horse around and rushed to Old Chow's Tavern. The so-called Old Chow's Tavern was a low thatched hut. There were a dozen tables in the dim room. Inside there was a hubbub of voices. There were sounds of finger-guessing, laughter, quarreling, and even fighting. It was a mess. Little Meng, who walked into the tavern, felt as if he had traveled back in time and returned to a bar in the city. This way. Gu Chongqing skillfully walked through the crowd to a square table in the corner. A slovenly man with unkempt hair like a bird's nest was lying on the table, covered in dirt. He reeked of alcohol, and half a jar of wine was placed in front of him. "I want to know where Yuan Mingji is." Gu Chongqing knocked on the table and lowered his voice as he spoke to the sloppy man. 500 taels. The sloppy man didn't even raise his head. It was as if he was snoring as he spat out a few words. No bargaining, no discounts. Pay up and you'll get the news. Get out if you don't. Little Meng felt a sense of familiarity with such a bad service. It was as if this was another Chu Jinyang. "Here's the money." Little Meng handed over a small cloth bag. There were a few gems in it, enough for 500 taels of silver. "Yes, the price is right." The small cloth bag disappeared in an instant. The slovenly man, drunk Xie, raised his head and said, "Bai Bajing will hold a banquet at the Castellan's mansion tomorrow night. Yuan Mingji will be there." After saying that, drunkard Xie dozed off on the table again. "A banquet at the Castellan's mansion?" Gu Chongqing nodded and turned to leave Old Chow's tavern. "So, there will be a good show tomorrow night." Gu Chongqing patted the sword at his waist and chuckled. "Yuan Mingji and Bai Bajing are the strongest in Fish Sea right now. Let's test our swords on them." Gu Chongqing looked up at Bai Zhe. "Brother Bai, are you interested in fighting?" "They don't deserve it," Bai Zhe answered coldly. "Fine." Gu Chongqing shook his head helplessly. "If you don't want to fight, leave it to me." Although Yuan Mingji and Bai Bajing had opened 9 apertures, they were only at the level of Sin the Miao from the Golden Sand Oasis. They were far weaker than Nguxie, who ranked 36th on the ranking list of young masters. In Gu Chongqing's words, it would only take one strike to kill an opponent like Sin the Miao. "Let's go to Castellan Bai's banquet tomorrow night." The three of them rode away, waiting for tomorrow night to wreak havoc in Fish Sea. Chapter 789. That night, the three of them found an inn in the city and settled down. In the middle of the night, Master Jinding, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, suddenly trembled. "It's starting again?" In a flash, Little Meng disappeared without a trace. Little Meng started another samsara mission? In the next room, Bai Zhe, the glacier swordsman, looked up with a smile. "I won't interfere with this mission." This time, Little Meng's samsara mission was the Devil's Tomb mission. This mission is a cheat given to Little Meng by the mastermind behind the scenes. Liu deeply sympathized with these masterminds. They all wanted to do something to Little Meng, but in the end, they couldn't beat the 3 Pure Ones. All their schemes eventually allowed Little Meng and the 3 Pure Ones to achieve Tao. In this mission, Little Meng got the Thunder God's mark, Qi Jingyan got the Devil Lord's bloodline, and Gu Shaosang got the Heavenly Court stone tablet. Everyone got something. Liu didn't care about these things, so he didn't bother to interfere. After getting the Thunder God's mark, Little Meng got the title Thunderblade Furious Monk. Haha. I hope he doesn't vomit blood. Thinking of Little Meng's divinity show and getting the title Thunderblade Furious Monk, his expression would be very interesting. Liu was overjoyed. "Young man, if you want to show off, you have to learn from me." Shaking his head with a smile, Liu closed his eyes and started to doze off. Time passed by quietly just like that. Because the time of the samsara mission was not synchronized, Little Meng disappeared and then returned in an instant. It seemed normal, but in fact it was very different. The banquet is about to start. After waiting for a day, it was finally time for Bai Bajing to hold the banquet. "Let's go." After leaving the inn, the three of them rushed to the city lord's mansion. Bai Bajing's city lord's mansion is quite decent. After a while, the three of them rode on their horses and arrived in front of a magnificent palace. This palace was actually similar to a country's imperial palace in terms of shape. It had a vermilion gate, richly ornamented beams and painted rafters. It was a scene of wealth. Are the three young heroes here to attend the city lord's banquet? Do you have an invitation? When they reached the palace gate, the three of them were stopped by the guards at the gate. He saw the glacier swordsman in snow-white clothes with a dignified bearing. Seeing the upright and handsome young Master Evergreen in his green robes, the guards were tactful and didn't dare to act rashly. Instead, they respectfully bowed and inquired. As for the gray-robed young Meng, he was completely ignored by the guards. I'm Gu Chongqing. Sitting on the saddle, Gu Chongqing glanced at the guards and announced his name loudly. Young Master Evergreen? Hearing Gu Chongqing's name, the guard was shocked. I didn't know young Master Chongqing was here. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. What happened in the Golden Sand Oasis had already spread throughout the Immensity Sea. Young Master Evergreen Gu Chongqing had defeated the Ice Snowblade Sin the Miao with his sword. His illustrious reputation had long since spread throughout the Immensity Sea. Such a young hero, even the city lord Bai Bajing had to treat him with respect. How could these guards dare to neglect him? Who is this? The guards turned their gazes to the figure in snow-white robes. Since he was young Master Evergreen's companion and had such an outstanding bearing, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Bai Zhe. The Glacier Swordsman announced his name with a grave expression. Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe. Hearing this name, the guards trembled in shock. Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe had defeated the white-headed vulture Anguixia with his sword. Such a shocking event had already spread throughout the Immensity Sea. It's actually such an illustrious figure. The guards didn't dare to tarry and hurriedly welcomed the three into the palace gate. Then, one of them hurried back to the residence to report to Bai Bajing. The city lord had to personally welcome people like the Glacier Swordsman and young Master Evergreen, in order to not appear disrespectful. Ha 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 ha. A moment later, a middle-aged man in a brocade robe with a valiant bearing welcomed them with a bright smile. The three of you have graced my humble dwelling with your presence. This Bai is late to welcome you, please forgive me. After hearing the report, Bai Bajing hurriedly came out to welcome them. Young Master Evergreen and Glacier Swordsman both came from the Immensity Sea and were new young heroes in the western region. Such figures had a limitless future. Bai Bajing naturally wouldn't let go of the opportunity to make friends with such young heroes. As for the gray-robed little Meng, he was once again ignored. I must make a name for myself. Little Meng was so depressed that he was about to go crazy. Gentlemen, please come in. Bai Bajing welcomed the three into the banquet hall with a beaming face. At this moment, the hall was brightly lit. On the exquisite long narrow tables, there were all kinds of wine, dishes, fruits, and vegetables. All the heroes, in fact, all the horse gang, were seated behind the long narrow tables. Seeing Bai Bajing personally welcome the three young men, the crowd raised their heads and looked curiously at the three men. Where are these three young men from? Why did City Lord Bai personally welcome them? The group of mounted bandits became curious about the identities of these three people. Yuan Mengji. At this time, little Meng saw sky-toppling Ho Yuan Mengji sitting in the first seat on the left side of the banquet hall. At the same time, he also saw monk Zhenhui, who was engrossed in eating a lamb leg. My good junior fellow apprentice, I've traveled thousands of miles for you. You're having so much fun here that you've forgotten your home. Seeing monk Zhenhui working hard and concentrating on eating meat, little Meng was speechless. He wished he could pull him over and teach him a lesson. Come on, come on, come on. Let me introduce these young heroes to you. After Bai Bajing and the other two men were seated in the hall, City Lord Bai Bajing raised his wine glass and raised it to the crowd with a bright smile, intending to introduce the three young men to the crowd. No need to introduce them. At this time, little Meng pressed the Buddhist commandment blade and stood up. I'm going to make a name for myself. I'm going to be famous in Jianghu. I don't want to be ignored anymore. Looking at the faint purple mark on the back of his left hand and hearing the faint thunder in the sky, little Meng took a deep breath. The two guys with me are already famous. How can I fall behind? He lifted the gray cloak covering his head, revealing his bald head. I'm Zhen Ding of Shaolin. When little Meng announced this name, he was actually very unwilling to accept it. Being a monk was really not suitable for showing off. However, he was still a Shaolin disciple with a bald head. There was no way he could say that he was not a monk, but a young hero in Jianghu. Clang! Little Meng pulled out the Buddhist commandment blade and pointed it at sky-flipping roar Yuan Mingji. He shouted loudly, Yuan Mingji, how dare you kidnap Shaolin disciples? You're courting death. What's going on? Zhen Ding of Shaolin? I know Shaolin. Zhen Ding, who is he? Is he famous? Look at his cultivation. He has just opened his eye apertures and ear apertures. How dare he challenge sky-flipping roar? The name of Shaolin can't intimidate people in the western regions. Seeing little Meng's sudden attack, the horse gang in the hall raised their heads in surprise. Well, I knew it. Hearing the question, who is Zhen Ding? Little Meng felt depressed again. Well, after this, I'll be famous. As long as he killed Yuan Mingji, his name would be spread, and he would no longer be a nobody. Senior brother, I knew you would come to save me. At this time, Zhen Hui, the little monk who was working hard, found that his senior brother had come. He hurriedly shouted with joy. Zhen Ding of Shaolin? What's that? Yuan Mingji snorted angrily. The joints of his hands cracked, revealing a trace of iron gray. Since you want to die, I'll send you to hell. Yuan Mingji was still afraid of the name Shaolin. However, he was not afraid of Zhen Ding of Shaolin. Anyway, he had already caught Zhen Hui. If he caught Zhen Ding and handed them to Zailuoju, he would get more credit. His iron-gray hands suddenly struck out, as if they had turned into hands made of steel. This was Yuan Mingji's famous unique skill, Golden Claws. Under this pair of iron claws, Yuan Mingji had crushed the throats of Jianghu young masters and crushed the weapons of Jianghu heroes. Today, under this pair of iron claws, this reckless Zhen Ding of Shaolin would definitely die. Boom! At this time, a sudden thunder sounded in the sky. In an instant, lightning flashed and rain poured down. What a good day! Little Meng raised his Buddhist commandment blade with a smile and pointed it at the sky. Buzz, buzz, on little Meng's left hand, a thunderbolt mark burst out purple lightning. When he raised his long saber, a thunderbolt suddenly appeared. Boom! The lightning burst out, illuminating the whole Fish Sea City as bright as day. In the sky, countless bolts of lightning intertwined and converged into a silver lightning as thick as a bucket. With a fierce and domineering intention of destroying the world, it suddenly fell down. With a slash, the thunder was shocking. Under this attack, everyone in the Castellan mansion was dumbfounded. Yuan Mingji was even more miserable. Under such overwhelming power, Yuan Mingji, who was in the Nine Apertures realm, had no power to resist at all. The lightning fell down, and in an instant Yuan Mingji was turned into charcoal by the lightning. How powerful! Zhen Ding of Shaolin, Thunderblade Furious Monk. After a long silence, there was a burst of horrified screams in the hall. Thunderblade Furious Monk? Damn it! Little Meng, who had killed Yuan Mingji with one slash, was very satisfied with his fame and awe of heroes. Suddenly, he heard the name, Thunderblade Furious Monk, and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Other people have a very cool name like Howren Evergreen. Why is it Thunderblade Furious Monk for me? Don't be so thunder, okay? I also want to be white as snow and sword as frost. More importantly, I don't want to be a monk for the rest of my life. I also want to find a girlfriend. At this moment, little Meng suddenly felt that he had failed to show off. I had a meeting this morning which delayed me. I have to update a chapter at noon. This chapter is 3,000 words. Chapter 790. Since we've made our move, let's wipe out the horse gang. Seeing Little Meng's sudden attack, Gu Chongqing chopped Yuan Mengji with his sword. Although Gu Chongqing was surprised by Little Meng's sudden increase in strength, he was relieved when he thought of the samsara space. The horse gang of the Immensity Sea has done all kinds of evil. Today, I'll wipe out the evil and return the world to its former glory. Gu Chongqing shouted loudly and righteously. The long sword was unsheathed and shone brightly like the sun rising from the east. It was like a blazing sun hanging high in the sky, shining brightly and illuminating the heavens and earth. With the Chongqing sword scripture as the foundation and the method of refining the sword qi, Gu Chongqing had integrated all his swordsmanship into one. At this time, Gu Chongqing's power had improved tremendously. This strike used the righteous sword intent to activate the Vairocana meditation sword. There was no Zen intent to save all living beings, only a righteous qi of punishing evil. There is righteousness in heaven and earth. Everything is manifold. Below is the river and above is the sun and the stars. This sword was full of righteousness. It was like the sun rising from the east. Ah! Damn it! Gu Chongqing, how dare you attack us? Master Zhe Luoju will not let you go. These horse gang members were not even as strong as Yuan Mengji. How could they resist Gu Chongqing's killing sword? The E-sword technique controlled the situation. The solitary sword used all its move. With the Haoran sword will and the Vairocana meditation sword, it was like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. This was Gu Chongqing's first attack after integrating all his swordsmanship. Other than killing the horse gang, he was also learning and familiarizing himself with his swordsmanship. Young Master Chongqing, Governor Bai Bajing was shocked and angry at the chaos in front of him. Gu Chongqing and the others had made a scene at a banquet. All the heroes who attended the banquet were about to die. Bai Bajing's face darkened. Clang! The sound of a sword rang out, and the cold intent caused Bai Bajing to shiver all over. Glacier swordsman! Bai Bajing shuddered and didn't dare to make the slightest movement. Bai Bajing's heart skipped a beat when he looked up at the white-clothed figure sitting in front of the table with a stern expression and a chilling aura. Glacier swordsman had killed the white-headed vulture Nguexia with his sword. After the new round of the ranking list of young masters was announced, he had to replace Nguexia's name and become the new 36th on the list. Even if the people on the ranking list of young masters had not entered the exterior, they were still much stronger than ordinary 9 apertures cultivators. Xiedao Zhe Luoju has been the leader of the vast ocean desert bandits for a long time. The Immensity Sea needs to change. A few thoughts flashed through Bai Bajing's mind. He smiled and nodded at Bai Zhe before sitting down again. He leisurely raised his wine cup and took a sip, completely ignoring the battle before him. It was said that the sobbing old man had died in the hands of Shaolin's Xian Ci. Evil blade Zhe Luoju no longer had any backing. If Glacier Swordsman and the others killed Zhe Luoju, it would not be impossible for him to control the Immensity Sea with his background. Our leader won't let you go. The last horse gang leader screamed and fell to the ground. The only person left in the banquet hall of the Castellan's mansion was Castellan Bai Bajing. 3 young heroes, you have done a great service by eliminating the horse gang in the Immensity Sea. On behalf of the people of the Immensity Sea, I thank you for your kindness. At this moment, Bai Bajing suddenly turned around and became the righteous party. He had completely forgotten that he had just called a bunch of horse gang leaders brothers. You flatter me, Castellan Bai. Gu Chongqing smiled faintly and sheathed his sword. He saluted Bai Bajing and said, It was all thanks to your help that we were able to eliminate the horse gang in the Immensity Sea. Castellan Bai Bajing of Fish Sea was said to be related to the Prime Azura. With Gu Chongqing's current strength, he naturally could not afford to offend a Dharmakaya master like the Prime Ajura. It was not difficult to kill Bai Bajing, but the consequences would be troublesome. If the Prime Ajura was angry, the Gu clan fort would be wiped out. Since Bai Bajing had flattered him, Gu Chongqing went along with the flow and returned the compliment. Thus, justice triumphed over evil. Everyone was happy. The wine is not bad. At this moment, Bai Zhe held a glass of wine from the western region. It released a trace of cold air, causing the scarlet wine to emit a cool mist. He smiled faintly and drank it in one gulp. It is my honor to be praised by the glacier swordsman. Bai Bajing heard this and was overjoyed. It seemed that the glacier swordsman had acknowledged his tacit understanding with Gu Chongqing. This matter was over. I heard that the evil blade Zhe Luojiu has returned to the Evil Ridge? The cold sword Qi lingered. Glacier swordsman Bai Zhe stood up and walked out of the hall. I was just about to test my sword with Zhe Luojiu. I hope he won't disappoint me. I hope that Master Bai will be famous for killing Zhe Luojiu. Bai Bajing bowed, unable to contain his joy. No matter who won the battle between the glacier swordsman and Zhe Luojiu, this matter would have an explanation. He even dared to kill Zhe Luojiu. What could I, Bai Bajing, do? Watching them slaughter so many heroes, I was filled with grief and indignation. Although I wanted to, I didn't have the strength. This person only wants to live a life of glory and riches. Everyone walked out of the Castellan mansion. Gu Chongqing turned his head and saw the smiling Castellan of Fish Sea sending them off respectfully. He shook his head slightly. You put your mind on politics. Naturally, your martial arts have no future. Bai Zhe commented lightly and mounted his horse. I plan to kill my way to Evil Ridge and test my sword with Evil Blade Zhe Luojiu. Are you interested in coming along? Brother Bai, you're challenging the exterior with your 9 acupores cultivation. How can I miss such a magnificent feat? Gu Chongqing was well aware of Bai Zhe's plan. He wanted to test his sword against the world and purify himself so that he would have no regrets in his hidden latch and complete his interior. He would reach the oneness of heaven and men and return to his original state. Glacier swordsman had reached this step? Although it might take a long time to perfect the interior realm, it was still a long process. Once he broke through, he would be able to reach the sky in a single bound. The future would be smooth sailing. I'd like to see such a magnificent feat. Little Meng was also very curious about this level of battle. Master Xian Ci had once said that Bai Zhe's strength was no less than that of He Jiu, the shapeless sword, who ranked first on the ranking list of young masters. 9 acupores were completed, hidden latch condensed, oneness of heaven and men, and returned to his original state. This was a path to build one's own foundation. If one only wanted to break through the realm, 9 acupores could be completed and promoted to half-step exterior scenery. Then, one could find a way to truly achieve the exterior. However, in this way, the hidden latch would be regrettable and the future of cultivation would be bleak. I'll have to face this obstacle in the future. It's good for me to experience Bai Zhe's path of accumulation in advance. Little Meng followed without hesitation and killed all the way to Evil Ridge. The 3 of them left Fish Sea, but the legends about them spread even further. Thunderblade Furious Monk Zhending, Vast Evergreen Gu Chongqing, and Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe had wiped out the Immensity Sea Horse Gang and killed 15 horse gang leaders. They were famous and like the sun in midday. Chapter 791. After leaving Fish Sea City and crossing the Fish Sea, they arrived at Tan Han Oasis. To the south of Tan Han Oasis was Evil Ridge, where Zhe Luojiu, the leader of the Immensity Sea horse gangs, resided. They boarded a large ship arranged by Bai Bajing and crossed the Fish Sea, galloping all the way. 3 days later, after galloping for thousands of miles, Evil Ridge was in sight. It was a pitch-black mountain range. Unlike the countless barren rocky mountains in the Immensity Sea, there were patches of dense forest growing on this pitch-black mountain ridge. However, the entire mountain range was covered with black soil and rocks, making the entire mountain range look pitch-black. It was eerie and terrifying, giving off an evil aura. "That's Evil Ridge." Seeing the gloomy ridge in front of them, they pulled on the reins and looked serious. Although they were heroic and seemed to be able to wipe out Evil Ridge soon. In fact, they were not relaxed at all. Even though Bai Zai's strength was extraordinary, there was a huge gap between those below the exterior level and those below. They were risking their lives by going to Evil Ridge this time. "I hope Zai Luoju won't let me down." Bai Zai still looked cold and serious, as if Zai Luoju was not a threat at all. Well, a max-level account with top-level equipment and GM authority was going to the novice village to kill a novice boss. How could they be nervous? "Brother Bai, shall we take a break first?" In Gu Chongqing's eyes, it was a desperate fight to fight Zai Luoju. In the face of such a battle, they naturally had to take a good rest and adjust their bodies and minds to the best state to burst out the strongest power. "No need." Bai Zai shook his head lightly. "I'm in high spirits all the way here. It's a good time to kill Zai Luoju in one go." "That's good." Gu Chongqing agreed with the saying of "in one go." When the fighting spirit was high, it was time to decide the winner. "Let's go. Let's go to Evil Ridge." With a loud shout, they galloped towards the Evil Ridge. "Who dares to trespass into Evil Ridge?" Seeing the four people galloping towards them, the horse gang patrolling around the periphery of Evil Ridge shouted loudly and rushed out to stop the four people. The patrolling horse gang was not too vigilant. After all, Zai Luoju was a tyrant in the Immensity Sea. In the Immensity Sea, there were only a few people who dared to go against Zai Luoju. They had never heard of anyone who dared to attack Evil Ridge. Brother Bai Gu Chongqing turned to Bai Zai and asked him about his plans. There were several different ways to fight a decisive battle. One was to adjust Luoju Gang's best. One Luoju Gang's body. Another was Luoju Gang. Luoju Gang's Luoju sect with a flick of his finger, a cold light pierced through the air. The few mounted bandit patrols in front of him froze in an instant and fell to the ground with a plop. Luan's kill gang ding. Both men and horses galloped away like lightning. Just like that, they went straight to the Evil Ridge without any scruples. Brother Bai is indeed extraordinary. Gu Chongqing sighed in admiration. He also rode his horse and chased after them. "That's the style of our generation. Thunderblade Furious Monk? What the hell is that?" Seeing Bai Zai's peerless demeanor, and then thinking of his helpless nickname, the corner of Little Meng's mouth twitched. "No, I must change my nickname. Don't be so thunder, and I'm not a monk either. I'm Mad Blade." "Who is it?" The horse gang blocking the way had just made a sound when he was drowned by the cold sword light. Swish! The cold sword light pierced through the air, and the bandits blocking the way fell to the ground dead. The setting of having to fight the mobs before killing the boss is really accurate everywhere. He secretly curled his lips, but his hands did not stop moving. Along the way, he galloped his horse, swung his sword, and crushed everything along the way. Like a dragon, the man and the horse pushed forward and charged toward Evil Ridge. Clang! 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 The silence of the Evil Ridge was broken by the rapid ringing of a bell. Alarm bell! Hearing the ringing of the bell, the horse gang on Evil Ridge was stunned for a while, and then they realized what the bell meant. "Someone is attacking Evil Ridge? Are you kidding me?" Although the horse gang picked up their swords and rushed out of the room one by one. But this situation still made the horse gang, who had lived a peaceful life in Evil Ridge for many years, feel completely incredulous. Clang! A cold light rushed up, and the cold sword chi rushed to the sky. Cold and dead silence. Boom! The sword shocked the sky. Under this sword, the gate of the Evil Ridge stronghold. The stronghold gate, which was made of huge stones like a solid city, was chopped into pieces by the sword. The gravel in the sky seemed to be frozen by the extreme cold and became brittle. After falling, the huge stones were broken into countless ice shards. The cold wind whistled and snow fell all over the sky. At this moment, in the hot immensity sea, on Evil Ridge, as if winter had come, snowflakes were floating all over the sky. Clatter, clatter, clatter! The sound of horse hooves could be heard as a majestic, snow-white horse galloped over like a white dragon. On the white horse, a cold-faced young man in snow-white clothes stepped on the frost and came whistling in the sky with flying snowflakes. Glacier Swordsman by Zay. Seeing the cold and dead sword that could freeze everything, and the figure that came walking in the snow like the god of ice and snow, the horse gang cried out in shock. He killed White-Headed Vulture, and Gueshia with his sword, joined hands with young Master Evergreen and Thunderblade Furious Monk, to wipe out the leaders of the horse gang in the Immensity Sea. He was a famous new hero on the ranking list of young masters. His name was like the shadow of a tree. The name, Glacier Swordsman, shocked the Immensity Sea. The cold sword chi that could freeze everything was almost as powerful as the exterior. It was hard to find a match for him. Seeing this figure, the horse gang stopped in their tracks. Let our boss deal with such a person. We don't want to die. Glacier Swordsman by Zay? I was looking for you, but you came to me yourself? A tall middle-aged man stepped out of the hall of the mountain gang. He was dressed in a black robe. His hair was coarse and short, and his face was full of curly whiskers. There was no eyeball in his left eye, only a black hole. He carried a long and narrow black saber at his waist. This was Evil Blade Zay Luoju. He was the proud disciple of the Crying Elder, a master of the first heaven of the exterior. By Zay? Very good. I'm going to kill you to avenge Ngueshia. Looking up at Bai Zay, Zay Luoju's empty left eye lit up with a touch of dark green light, as if countless ghosts were crying in the black hole of his left eye. The long and narrow black saber came out of its sheath with a clang, and endless black smoke billowed. Resentment, jealousy, greed, ferocity, cunning, malice, brutality, endless evil thoughts came out of the billowing black smoke, as if all the evils in the world were gathered in this saber. I'll only use one sword move. Bai Zay raised his long sword with a cold face. The cold air burst out violently, the cold wind whistled, and frost condensed. You're only worthy of one sword move. The cold blue light suddenly bloomed, and the cold sword light shot up to the sky. A great battle was about to break out. Chapter 792. Shameless Boasting. Endless evil gathered. Evil Blade Zay Luoju was covered in black smoke. A mass of dark clouds gathered in the sky. The dark clouds rolled and the evil aura filled the sky. You'll never know how powerful the exterior is until you've reached the exterior. As the dark clouds churned in the sky, endless evil thoughts gathered. Resentment, jealousy, greed, cruelty, cunning, malice, brutality. Human nature was sinister. Human nature was evil. Everyone had evil thoughts and evil thoughts. No matter how kind and upright a person was, in the dead of the night, in a place with no one around, there would always be some evil thoughts in his heart. For example, if someone had bullied you, would you want him dead? Have you ever thought of reaping without sowing? Have you ever thought of being rich? Have you ever thought of being surrounded by beautiful women? These were all evil thoughts. If one wasn't a heartless sage or a god or a Buddha, who could be pure and kind, a strike of the blade would stir up evil thoughts in people's hearts. Under the impact of such violent evil thoughts, one's divine soul would be lost and eroded by evil thoughts. One would fall into endless evil thoughts and could not extricate himself. Then, when one's divine soul was lost, the blade would come down. There was no way to block it. Damn it! Zay Luoju is so strong? Even though they were far away, Gu Chongqing, Little Meng, and the others were still tempted by the saber. Fortunately, it was just a little bit of aftershock. Gu Chongqing's Haoran sword spirit was enough to cut off the evil thoughts in their hearts. Little Meng used the peace-quietude split of the Ananda oath-breaking bladesmanship to cut off the evil thoughts in his heart and keep his mind intact. The aftershock was already so powerful. Bai Zhe, who bore the brunt of the attack, must be in an even more difficult situation. This bladesmanship is similar to the Ananda oath-breaking bladesmanship. This kind of bladesmanship is the most unpredictable and difficult to block. Having practiced the Ananda oath-breaking bladesmanship himself, Little Meng had a thorough understanding of the bladesmanship that attacked the mind. He knew how dangerous and terrifying it was. Senior brother, this strike is very ordinary. It's just a straight strike. It's not even as good as the basic bladesmanship of the Shaolin Temple. There's no change at all. Little monk Zhen Hui looked at the two of them in confusion. He had no idea what was going on with the two of them acting as if they were facing a formidable enemy. There's actually a pure and kind person? Gu Chongqing turned his head and stared at the nonchalant Zhen Hui. Could this little monk be the reincarnation of Buddha? TSK. How was he pure and kind? He's just stupid. Little Meng pursed his lips. He's just a simple-minded fool. You want him to think about how to harm others? Isn't this too difficult? The heart of a newborn, pure and flawless. Master Zhen Hui's temperament was perfect for the cultivation of Buddhism. His future is limitless. Gu Chongqing's compliment was sincere. This kind of simple-minded fool, oh, pure and innocent heart. Such a person was simply a natural-born bald thief. While Gu Chongqing and the others were talking, Zhe Luoju's saber was already swinging down. The Ice River swordsman, who had been wearing a stern expression, was stunned by the boundless evil intent of this blade strike. Zhe Luoju was very familiar with this situation. Every enemy that faced his blade would lose their mind and spirit under the impact of endless evil thoughts. They would be at the mercy of others. Ice River swordsman, that's all there is to it. Zhe Luoju sneered. He felt the thrill of killing a genius. So what if he was talented? So what if he was extraordinarily talented? A dead genius wasn't even worth a fart. The long and narrow blade cut through the air. Zhe Luoju seemed to see blood splattering everywhere. He seemed to see the Ice River swordsman's unwilling and desperate eyes. However, evil blade, that's all there is to it. A faint, cold laugh sounded. The Ice River swordsman, who should have lost his mind and spirit due to the impact of evil thoughts, was actually not affected at all. Zhe Luoju's long saber missed its target. The most terrifying thing about Zhe Luoju's evil blade was that the boundless evil thoughts could impact one's mind and cause them to lose their minds. If one ignored the evil thoughts, the blade technique was indeed all there was to it. Wasn't the Ice River swordsman by Zhe Liu? Given Liu's level of spirit cultivation, how much power would it take to shake his mind and make him lose his mind? Even the Mirage immortal emperor of the origin world, who had become an emperor through illusions, would find it difficult to make Liu lose his mind, let alone a mere Zhe Luoju. Alright, this was already cheating. This is impossible. His ultimate move, his invincible blade technique, had missed just like that. Zhe Luoju was horrified and in disbelief. How could a mere Ice River swordsman not be affected by the evil thoughts? Who didn't have evil thoughts in their hearts? Was this Ice River swordsman the reincarnation of Buddha? Could there really be pure and kind people in this world? Senior brother, young Master Bai is also not affected by the evil blade. Is he also stupid? At this moment, Zhen Hui asked innocently and foolishly. As soon as he said this, the expressions of everyone present became very strange. There's another one? He's also not affected? That little Qi nourishing monk is also a pure and kind person? Zhe Luoju suddenly felt like his beliefs were collapsing. My blade technique that I'm so proud of is actually so weak? Can any random person break my saber technique? Junior brother, hearing that young Master Bai is also stupid, little Meng was so embarrassed that his face was burning. Ice River Swordsman has a heart as cold as ice. I'm afraid his means of dealing with the evil blade are more powerful than ours. Gu Chongqing looked at Bai Zhe with admiration. Young Master Bai's cultivation is indeed unfathomable. We are far from being able to compare. Bai Zhe had also heard Zhen Hui's words. Bai Zhe was speechless to the extreme about this. Just because you're stupid, you think others are as stupid as you? Good logic indeed. However, Bai Zhe did not want to bicker with Zhen Hui. Don't talk to an idiot. He will drag your IQ down to his level and crush you in terms of IQ. Clang, the sound of a sword pierced the sky. It was so cold and silent that it froze everything. Zhe Luoju, take my sword too. A cold blue light pierced through the sky. Extreme coldness swept across, forming a thick layer of frost on the ground. Snow filled the sky. Endless frost. At this moment, there was only endless coldness between heaven and earth. Flowers and trees were frozen. Houses and buildings were frozen. Even the ground was frozen. This sword is actually so powerful? With one sword, the entire hall was frozen. This kind of power was much smaller than a real exterior attack that could cause changes in the weather within 100 miles. However, it was no less terrifying than an exterior attack. Little Meng shuddered all over. He looked at Bai Zhe with shock in his eyes. This guy who had been showing off was actually so terrifying? Crack, crack, endless coldness swept across and froze everything. Under this attack, Zhe Luoju's face was full of fear as he desperately resisted. However, his strongest power was to induce evil thoughts. But this power was useless against Bai Zhe. After losing his strongest power, Zhe Luoju, an exterior expert, had lost his divine sense. With one sword, Zhe Luoju was frozen into an ice sculpture. Ice River Swordsman Bai Zhe slayed evil blade Zhe Luoju here. A line of words appeared on the ice sculpture. 9 apertures slaying an exterior expert. Brother Bai has created a legend. Gu Chongqing and Little Meng looked at each other in shock. Chapter 793. Evil Blade Zhe Luoju was finally dead. Seeing this, Gu Chongqing heaved a long sigh of relief. The gloom in his heart dissipated, and he felt as if a huge stone had been lifted off his chest. The future is indeed unpredictable. At this moment, the crisis of Gu village's destruction had dissipated. The sky is high and the clouds are light. The sea is vast and the sky is open to me. Gu Chongqing was extremely happy. It was as if he had broken free of his shackles and set his soul free. He was full of energy and vigor. It's just that we have to get rid of all evil. In the future, Gu Chongqing saw, besides Zhe Luoju, the leaders of the horse gang in the Evil Ridge, especially the evil scholar and the others, were the direct murderers. Now that Zhe Luoju was dead, it was time to get rid of all these bandits to prevent them from escaping and attacking Gu Fort. Zhe Luoju has been beheaded, but his subordinates are also evil people. We have to get rid of all evil. Pulling out his long sword, Gu Chongqing killed his way into the stronghold. Sword light flashed as he waved his long sword at the horse gang who were scared silly by Zhe Luoju's death. Senior brother, shouldn't we stop this kind of killing? Zhen Hui asked Little Meng. Seeing Gu Chongqing kill the horse gang, he could not bear to see it. Eliminating evil is promoting kindness. Such vicious horse bandits should be completely eradicated. Little Meng had never thought of himself as a monk. Chivalrous and righteous were the things that Jianghu heroes should do. The Shaolin Temple did not kill, but captured and suppressed their enemies. They tried to convert them with Buddhist Dharma in an attempt to make the heterodox doctrines change their ways. In Little Meng's eyes, it was simply pedantic. Make the heterodox doctrines change their ways? It would be better to just chop them off with a knife. Evil blade Zhe Luoju has plundered countless treasures over the years. He is also a master of the exterior, so he has collected many refined weapons and skills. We can't waste them. All these things could be exchanged for karma points. Grabbing Zhenhui, Little Meng went into the main hall of the stronghold and began to search for Zhe Luoju's treasures. Zhe Luoju's saber is not bad. Bai Zhe reached out and grabbed Zhe Luoju's long and narrow saber into his hand. A treasure weapon forged from the fusion of profound gold and cold iron. Although the power of the exterior is only evil thoughts, it's not bad in essence. With a swipe of his hand, the black saber instantly collapsed and turned into a cold ray of light that merged into the glacier sword in his hand. This longsword carried the original Bai Zhe's dream of wandering the Jianghu and making a name for himself. Originally, it was just an ordinary iron longsword. Now that it had been merged with the evil blade, it had been upgraded again. It had broken through the refined weapon level and became a lower-grade precious weapon. The power of the exterior was the icy holy light. Let's upgrade my equipment. It's time for me to explore the world. Liu hung the upgraded glacier sword back on his waist. He wasn't interested in Zhe Luoju's other items. If it wasn't for the fact that this ice river sword carried karma, Liu wouldn't even bother to use such a lousy item even if he opened a smurf account. The evil ridge has been wiped out. From now on, there will be no more horse gangs in the Immensity Sea. At this moment, Gu Chongqing, who had eliminated all evil, had already put away his longsword and returned to the frozen hall. Big hall. Little Meng also walked out with a big bag and a big smile on his face. Not only are there more than a dozen weapons of the refined weapon level, but there are also many skills of the enlightenment level. There aren't many skills of the exterior level, only Zhe Luoju's nether evil blade. Little Meng opened the bag and showed them what he had found. He looked like he was going to split the loot. I don't need these things. Liu waved his hand and didn't even look at them. Even with his smurf account by Zhe, he really didn't care about such lousy items. I don't need these either. His path of swordsmanship had already been integrated into the Chongqing sword scripture. The other skills of the Enlightenment period were of little use to him. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Little Meng put away the bag and muttered to himself, "You're all rich. Only I, a poor boy, am still collecting lousy items." After the matter was settled, they won a great victory and stepped out of the evil ridge in high spirits. One day later, the news of the destruction of the evil ridge spread all over the Immensity Sea. Then, the news that the glacier swordsman, Bai Zhe, had killed the evil blade Zhe Luoju was spread all over the world. Killing an exterior master with 9 apertures had created a legend. Even the shapeless sword He Jiu, who ranked first on the ranking list of young masters, had only killed a half-step exterior scenery master. For a moment, the glacier swordsman shocked the world. Gu Chongqing, the awe-inspiring evergreen, had killed Sin the Miao, the snow manic blade, and killed 15 horse gang leaders. Zhen Ding, the thunder blade furious monk, slashed with his blade and thunder fell from the sky. Yuan Mengji, the sky-flipping roar, who had killed a 9 apertures master with 4 apertures, also gained a great reputation. More importantly, the 3 of them joined forces to destroy the evil ridge, which changed the situation of the entire Immensity Sea. The horse gang disappeared. Bai Bajing, the governor of Fish Sea, united with a dozen oases around him and declared a state. Since then, the horse gang had been divided. The war-torn Immensity Sea actually showed signs of returning to peace. Of course, these things had nothing to do with the famous young masters in Jianghu. The central region is where heroes come from. On a vast grassland in an oasis, the 4 young masters galloped on their horses in high spirits. Next, I'm going to the central region. Gu Chongqing raised his horsewhip and pointed in the direction of the central region. I want to test my sword and compete with the heroes of the Central Region. Only then can I live up to my life. I'll go to the Central Region too. Bai Zhe nodded slightly. The Western Region, the Southern Wilderness, the Eastern Sea, the Northern Plains, and the Central Region. This world is very big. There are countless heroes and masters in Wulin. I want to see them one by one. When you two arrive at the Central Region, I'll treat you to 300 cups of wine and get drunk. Little Meng cupped his fists and laughed, looking like a heroic young master. Senior brother, we're monks. We don't drink. The little monk, Zhen Hui, had touched Little Meng's sore spot. Little Meng was speechless for a long time. He could not tell his junior brother that this time, he was going to run away. He would never go back to being a monk again. Thunderblade Furious Monk was the eternal pain in Little Meng's heart. Goodbye. After cupping their fists, the young masters of Jianghu bade farewell and galloped on their horses. The 6 Fan School of the Central Region. At this time, a new round of Heaven, Earth, and Man rankings were officially updated. In every city, on the high wall outside the 6 Fan School's encampment, the 3 rankings were hung up again. The Heaven and Earth rankings were unchanged. However, the changes in the Man rankings were inexplicably shocking. Name: Bai Zhe. Realm: 9 apertures completion, interior condensation, oneness of heaven and men. Kung Fu, glacier sword art. Record: killed white-headed vulture and Guoxia in Quicksand Town. Killed evil blade Zhe Luo in Evil Ridge. Ranking: first on the man list. Nickname: Glacier Swordsman. Identity: north of the glacier, Songyue by family. Wow! Seeing the new man list, countless Wulin heroes in the world were in an uproar. 9 apertures slash of the exterior? How could he create such a legend? Glacier Swordsman is so strong? At this point, Glacier Swordsman, Bai Zhe's name shook Jianghu. Chapter 794. Evil Ridge has been destroyed. 3 days later, an ordinary-looking middle-aged man, who looked like an old farmer, stepped into Evil Ridge. He was one of the Crying Elder's disciples, the leader of the 72 bandits of Hellion Mountain, Yu Huandua, who was as famous as the white-headed vulture and Guoxia. Glacier Swordsman is so powerful? When he arrived at the main hall of the stronghold, he saw that the main hall had yet to freeze. When he saw Zhe Luoju frozen into an ice sculpture, Yama sucked in a breath of cold air. I'm the only one left of my lineage. It's our tradition to take revenge. This is not over yet. Yu Huandua looked up with a ferocious expression. I can't deal with Glacier Swordsman and Gu Chongqing. But Zhen Ding of Shaolin and the Thunderblade Furious Monk. Humph, a monk killed people like flies. This is a violation of the precept. A gentleman could be bullied. Since Shaolin monks abstained from killing, Zhen Ding had broken the precepts. He could do something about it. Therefore, Yu Huandua deliberately spread the word that Zhen Ding of Shaolin and the Thunderblade Furious Monk hated evils and killed people like flies. Master. When Little Meng and Zhen Hui galloped towards Quicksand Town, intending to return to the Central Plains along the way, they suddenly saw a middle-aged monk standing on a small hill in front of them. He was wearing a yellow frock and a red cassock. This man was Little Meng and Zhen Hui's master, Master Xian Ci. I'm glad you're okay. Xian Ci's figure flashed, and he instantly rushed down the hill, and arrived in front of the two. Looking at his 2 little disciples, Xian Ci felt both happy and helpless. Master Abbot had made a mistake, but Xian Ci couldn't say it out loud in case he felt embarrassed. He had to rush back to the Immensity Sea from the Central Region to pick up the 2 disciples abandoned by the abbot. It took him a few days to go back and forth. He didn't expect that in just a few days, his disciples would make a name for themselves, but also would get into big trouble. For a Shaolin monk to say that he abhors evil as if it were his personal enemy was simply an insult. Let's go. It was already a blessing that the two little fellows were able to return safely under the watchful eyes of so many enemies. As for the mistakes they made, they were just kids. He would discipline them strictly in the future. Xian Ci took Zhen Ding and Zhen Hui all the way back to Quicksand Town. Then things went as planned. Little Meng, the Thunder Blade Furious monk, who hated evil, was caught red-handed by the head of the Shaolin Commandment Hall, Monk Wujing. Hated evils? Killed people like flies? Thunder Blade Furious monk? Monk Wujing looked at Little Meng with a pained and regretful expression. He scolded him sternly. As a disciple of Shaolin, a disciple of Zen's sect, a member of Buddhism, how could you be so murderous, cruel, and heartless? Master. Little Meng was stunned by these words. Chief, Buddha has Vajra glaring eyes, and Buddha has subduing demons and devils. The horse gang had done all kinds of evil. Not only had they captured junior brother Zhen Hui, but they were also intercepting and killing other disciples. We can't just let ourselves be captured and be slaughtered by others, right? Is everyone in the Evil Ridge trying to kill you? Killed Evil Ridge, Little Meng sighed in his heart. In the Battle of the Evil Ridge, he had followed Bai Zhe all the way to the Evil Ridge. Indeed, he had killed all the horse gang in his sight with his saber. In the end, he had helped Gu Chongqing when he was trying to get rid of all evil. Although he was quick to avenge, he violated the Buddhist precept. But, in Little Meng's view, he was right. Master, I did nothing wrong. Little Meng straightened his neck and said loudly, Master, don't you know the principle of killing all evils? If we let the evildoers live freely, we will only educate them. More good people will suffer. Won't that add to our sins? Killing is protecting. Killing karma is not killing people. Shaolin is Zen. The way of Zen is to seek the Buddha in the heart. Everyone is a Buddha and we are a Buddha. Wine and meat pass through the intestines and Buddha sits in the heart. Why do we cling to the precepts? Bastard! Master Wujing smashed the table in front of him. He was furious. If there are no rules and precepts, where is the Buddha nature? Where is the Dharma? How can you be so unrepentant? After that, although Master Xian Ci pleaded for mercy and paid a huge price, it was still unsalvageable. Master Wujing, who enforced the law strictly, was merciless. Abolish your martial arts and expel you from Shaolin. After the verdict, Little Meng's identity as Master Zhending became history. You go back to the Su family in Fairy's capital. That's your home after all. Xian Ci reached out and pressed his palm on Little Meng's dantian. He sighed and sent Little Meng out. Golden lotuses appeared one after another, and lotuses bloomed with every step. Xian Ci brought Little Meng along. 2 days later, they arrived at Wuliang City in the north of Dajin, at the border between Dazhou and Dajin. I won't be able to take care of you from now on. You're on your own now. Don't stay on the road. Go back to the Su family in Fairy's capital. With a deep sigh, Xian Ci shook his head and took a step forward. Golden lotuses blossomed, and he vanished without a trace. The Su family in Fairy's capital? I don't plan to go back. Thinking back to when he first transmigrated and the horse-faced old servant sent him to Shaolin, Little Meng knew that the Su family in Fairy's capital was probably not a good place. Moreover, he no longer had the identity of a bald thief. It was a good opportunity for him to return to his original identity as a young hero of the Jianghu. From now on, he would be free to roam freely. Little Meng did not care about his martial arts that had been abolished. He was still young and had the samsara space. Even if he were to recultivate, he would quickly regain his strength. Then, let's explore the Jianghu. He found a ready-made clothing store in Wuliang City and changed into the white robe that he had been longing for. He put on a scholar's hat to cover his bald head. He carried the Buddhist commandment blade in his bag and hung a long sword on his waist. Little Meng looked at himself in a bronze mirror in the store, and nodded in satisfaction. I can finally wear clothes whiter than the snow. Little Meng laughed and stepped out of the store. He opened his arms and made a gesture of embracing the world. Jianghu, I'm coming. I'm coming too. Suddenly, a cold laugh sounded. Then, the sound of hurried horse hooves could be heard. 4 fine horses galloped over. On the backs of the horses were 4 valiant-looking men with sabers in their hands. Their faces were ferocious and murderous. Mounted bandits? Are they here for revenge? Little Meng frowned when he saw the attire of the 4 men. I just had my martial arts abolished by Shaolin. Now, mounted bandits are here for revenge? After a few thoughts, Little Meng immediately understood what was going on. His reputation of abhorrence of evil probably had something to do with the remnants of these mounted bandits. A dragon is trapped in the shallows. How can a water snake humiliate it? Little Meng unsheathed the long sword at his waist. His face was as cold as ice and his heart was filled with murderous intent. I've suffered so much. You can be my punching bag. The second chapter in the afternoon was slightly later. Chapter 795. Damn Baldy, you deserve this. Damn Baldy, how dare you come to Evil Ridge? Are you stupid now? A sect with strict rules like this is the easiest to mess with. Chop him up. The horse gang brandished his long saber and charged at Meng Qi. The shiny saber whistled through the air and chopped down at Little Meng's head. You dare not mess with Brother Gu or Brother Bai. Do you think I'm a pushover? Little Meng laughed out of anger and subconsciously ran his internal force, only to find that his dantian was empty. Only then did he remember that his kung fu had been destroyed. However, Little Meng did not panic. Even without internal force, Little Meng's body was very strong because of the consummation of the 5th level of the Golden Bell Shield. Moreover, Little Meng had also learned a swordsmanship in order to achieve the ideal of white robe, frosty sword chi. This swordsmanship did not require internal force, but it could still exert its peerless power. Dogu Jian, arrow-breaking style. Little Meng's face was calm. He pointed his long sword and slashed in front of the 4-horse gang like a ghost, using their eyes as hidden weapons. Time seemed to slow down and everything around him seemed to disappear. Only the ferocious eyes of the 4-horse gang were shining in front of Little Meng like a string of light bulbs. The sword flashed like a cold star. A shrill scream was heard. The 4-horse gang covered their eyes and groaned in pain. They fell from their horses to the ground. Weak! Little Meng sneered and stood with his hand on his sword. The demeanor of a peerless swordsman was on full display. Good swordsmanship! A compliment came from the roof in front of him. A figure that looked like an old farmer floated down from the roof and nodded at Little Meng in admiration. His swordsmanship was wonderful. It was inevitable that he would be praised. But Little Meng was not happy to see the person who was praising him. Yu Huandua, the standing Yama. This was another bandit who was as famous as the white-headed vulture Nguoxia. He was also a disciple of the Crying Elder. His cultivation had reached the consummation of 9 acupores and his strength was not much worse than that of the white-headed vulture Nguoxia. If Little Meng had not lost his kung fu, he would have had a chance. But now, he was no match for Yu Huandua. Damn Baldy, I used a little trick, and you were kicked out of Shaolin. Now that your martial arts are crippled, let's see how you're going to escape. A hazy yellow light burst out between Xiao Chen's palms. A boundless power of desiccation surged, making one feel like they were in a desert. So it was you. Little Meng snorted coldly and raised the long sword in his hand high. He calmed his mind and focused all of his attention on this sword. Given his current situation, he probably only had one chance to strike an opponent like Yu Huandua. Life or death, it all depended on the sword. His mind was as one. Suddenly, little Meng felt as if a shackle in his body had broken with a cracking sound. A wave of warmth rose from his dantian and quickly spread throughout his body. The abundant internal energy was like an open dam, gushing out and rising steadily. In an instant, his tyrannical inner strength returned. Faced with this unexpected situation, little Meng was shocked and immediately understood the reason. So, Master didn't really abolish my martial arts. With his internal energy restored, little Meng was even more confident. Even if he couldn't defeat Yu Huanhua, at least he could stay alive. Little Meng, I'm here to drink with you. Right at this moment of mutual hostility and on the verge of erupting, an upright figure in green clothes suddenly floated over. Gu Chongqing. Little Meng was overjoyed to see this figure. On the other hand, Yu Huanhua's expression changed drastically and he broke out in a cold sweat. Yu Huanhua, the crying elder's line is about to be wiped out. Instead of hiding and running for your life, you dare to come out and cause trouble? You're digging your own grave. He unsheathed his long sword, and the sword light shot up to the sky. It was like the sun rising from the east, majestic and abundant. The majestic sword light was like a blazing sun hanging high in the sky, shining brilliantly and illuminating the world. I only need one strike to kill you. Yu Huanhua's strength was slightly stronger than Poison Miao's. However, Gu Chongqing's current strength was much stronger than when he killed Poison Miao with his sword. He stabbed with his sword, and the sword light illuminated the world. Even though Yu Huanhua tried his best to block it, yellow light burst out as if the desert had descended. Despite that, the yellow sand exploded under the sword light that was as majestic as the sun, and the sword light penetrated the skull. Blood splattered everywhere, and Yu Huanhua, died instantly. I have a grudge against your line too. Do you think I'll let you go? I've chased you all the way from the desert to kill you. Gu Chongqing sneered and sheathed his sword. In that future, Zhe Luoju, the evil blade, was directly related to the death of Gu Chongqing's family. However, if Yu Huanhua, attacked the Gu clan fort when Gu Chongqing wasn't home, that would be a huge threat too. Gu Chongqing, who was determined to change the future, naturally wouldn't let Yu Huanhua go. Eh? Gu Chongqing, you're here too? I don't even have to do anything. At this moment, a young girl in a yellow dress with unparalleled beauty flew through the air with a smile and landed beside the two of them. Jiwei, you're here too. Two good friends came at the same time when he was in danger. It warmed little Meng's heart, and the depression of being kicked out of Shaolin also dissipated a little. I'm here too. At this moment, a cold voice rang out, and a figure as cold as ice descended from the sky. The appearance of this figure seemed to make the surrounding temperature drop a little. Cool breeze blew, and it was very refreshing. Brother Bai, you're here too. Little Meng laughed, unable to contain his joy. He was very touched. Even if I'm kicked out of Shaolin, I still have brothers. I still have friends. I'm not alone. Today, let's drink 300 cups to our heart's content. At this moment, little Meng finally said that he would drink 300 cups to his heart's content. He was no longer worried that someone would say that he had broken the precept. Indeed, let's drink to our heart's content. Jiang Jiwei walked over with a smile, holding a piece of paper filled with writing. She handed it to little Meng. Congratulations, new master on the ranking list of young masters. Thunderblade Furious Monk, Reckless Monk. That's a good name. Little Meng was so ashamed that he wanted to crawl into a hole to hide his face. Wow. Brother Bai, you're number 1 on the ranking list of young masters. Behind you are Shapeless Sword Hijio, Ledger Keeper of Lives Wang Xiuan, Wolf King Tai Sheng, Siren of Grand Luogu Shaosang, Unstoppable Blade Yen Chong, Buddhist Heart Palm Xianzhen, Modest Earth Deity Chao Yi, and Astounding 100 Miles Jiang Hengchuan. Jiwei, you're here to show off, aren't you? You're definitely here to show off, right? You're number 10 on the ranking list of young masters. Brother Gu, you're number 20? This ranking doesn't match your strength. As he spoke, little Meng also saw his own ranking. Number 33 on the ranking list of young masters. Then, Reckless Monk, Thunderblade Furious Monk. F***CK. Little Meng's face darkened. Previously, this name was only known in the Immensity Sea. Now this name was on the ranking list of young masters. Then this name had spread all over the world. When others heard the names Reckless Monk and Thunderblade Furious Monk, they would think of dark-skinned, muscled, 8 feet tall, and 8 feet in circumference. When will I be able to clear my name? Little Meng wanted to cry but had no tears. Ha 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 ha. Seeing little Meng's expression, everyone laughed. Chapter 796. The ocean laughs, the tides on both sides of the river. After 3 glasses of wine, little Meng began to sing. Little Meng. I thought he was a good drinker when I saw him drinking. I didn't expect him to pass out after 3 glasses. Gu Chongqing tapped the beat and sang along with Xiao Meng. He turned his head and looked at Jiang Jiwei in confusion. Among the people present, Jiang Jiwei was probably the one who knew Xiao Meng the earliest. She should know Xiao Meng better. Well, the Reckless Monk is just that straightforward. Jiang Jiwei could only make up a story. How could she have known that Xiao Meng, who had picked up the glass and gulped it down, would collapse after 3 glasses? As a transmigrator, little Meng subconsciously thought that his alcohol tolerance was the same as before he transmigrated. He had completely forgotten that he was a Shaolin monk and had never drunk before. After finishing 3 bowls in 1 gulp, little Meng was no longer able to cross the line after 3 bowls. Hegemony is better than a night of drinking in the mortal world. It was as if he wanted to finish his act. After singing, little Meng started to recite a poem. I'll help him wake up. She waved her hand and a gust of cold air hit his face. Little Meng shivered and broke out in a cold sweat. He immediately sobered up. Little Meng blushed and wanted to find a hole to hide in. How shameful! You sang well and wrote a good poem. Little Meng is talented in both literature and martial arts. Jiang Jiwei held back her laughter and nodded at Little Meng. Ahem! Little Meng coughed and did not know what to say. Now that I've dealt with Han Hai, I plan to travel around the mainland. Bai Zhe put down his glass and looked at everyone. He smiled and said, there are many martial arts masters in Dajin and Zhou. It's a good opportunity to see them. First, I plan to visit Shaolin. Shaolin? Little Meng was stunned. He did not know why the glacier swordsman was going to Shaolin. Even if Bai Zhe was the first on the list and wanted to challenge Shaolin, he was still far from it. I've seen a record before. In the Shaolin Temple's Yao Subduing Pagoda, there is a black tortoise. Its ice power is very tyrannical, and it will be of some help to my ice sword Qi. I plan to go and see it. Of course, this was just an excuse. Liu naturally had other reasons for going to Shaolin Temple. Black tortoise was just an excuse. I see. Little Meng nodded, feeling relieved. When he was cultivating the golden bell canopy, he also used the black tortoise's ice power to temper his body in the Yao-suppressing pagoda. It made sense that Bai Zhe's icy sword Qi borrowed from the black tortoise's talent of the demon clan. If it was in the past, I could still say something. But now, I can't help with this matter. However, Brother Bai can look for my master. He will help Brother Bai facilitate this matter. Bai Zhe wanted to go to Shaolin Temple. Little Meng had just been expelled from Shaolin Temple. Moreover, it was fake that his kung fu was abolished. For the time being, he did not want to meet the Shaolin monks face to face, lest the commandment hall came to cripple his martial arts again. Thank you. Bai Zhe nodded. He had other plans for going to Shaolin Temple. He was not really going to look for the black tortoise. However, it was not a bad idea to enter Shaolin Temple with Xian Xi's connections. I plan to go to Shindu first. My mother is from the Xie clan in Shindu. I haven't returned to Shindu for many years. I'm going to pay my elders a visit. Gu Chongqing also had his own plans. I'd better go wander the Jianghu for a while. Senior Marshal Brother Zhang and Senior Marshal Brother Qi, I plan to meet them. Little Meng did not want to go to the Su clan in Shindu after he left Shaolin Temple. He planned to hang out with Zhang Yuanshan and Qi Jingyan for a while and then enjoy being a young hero of the Jianghu. I'm practicing my swordsmanship. I plan to explore the Jianghu. Jiang Jiwei stood up and saluted to everyone. Everyone, this is goodbye. We'll meet again in the Jianghu. She leaped up and floated out of the tavern. Jiang Jiwei left as soon as she said she would, without any hesitation. In that case, we'll go our separate ways too. After saying their goodbyes, everyone walked on their own paths. The sea laughs. Little Meng sang and galloped away on his horse. At this time, the abbot of Shaolin should have found a helper and is planning to return to Shaolin, right? After Bai Zhe parted with everyone, he went straight to Shaolin Temple. Evil Master Han Guang pretended to be the abbot of Shaolin Temple, Kong Wen. Although the real abbot Kong Wen was rescued by Gu Chongqing, it was not good for him to fight back. After all, if two Dharmakaya masters fought in Shaolin Temple, the consequences would be, the entire Shaolin Temple would be destroyed. As the abbot of Shaolin, Kong Wen naturally did not want Shaolin Temple to suffer such a disaster. In fear of breaking the vases, he could only find a helper and use force to minimize the losses. Mount Liantai, Shaolin Temple. It's really something. A few days later, Bai Zhe arrived at the foot of Mount Liantai and at the gate of Shaolin Temple. I'm Bai Zhe. I'm here to visit Master Xian Ci. At the gate, Bai Zhe told the Shaolin monk the purpose of his visit. Bai Zhe? Glacier swordsman Bai Zhe? Hearing the name Bai Zhe, the Shaolin monk was shocked. He did not dare to neglect and quickly saluted Bai Zhe. Benefactor Bai, the first on the ranking list of young masters, has arrived. Please come in. I'll inform Master Xian Ci. A moment later, Xian Ci arrived at the gate. Benefactor Bai, you've arrived. Xian Ci smiled and saluted Bai Zhe. Previously, Zhen Ding and Zhen Hui were lost in the Immensity Sea. Thank you for your help. Bai Zhe, Gu Chongqing, and Zhen Ding had caused havoc in the Immensity Sea and killed the horse gang. Xian Ci naturally knew. Xian Ci had a good impression of Bai Zhe. A few days ago, I met Zhen Ding in Wuliang. This time, I'm here to ask for a favor. Bai Zhe saluted Xian Ci. I'm cultivating the ice sword qi. Now I've reached the stage of oneness of heaven and man. I heard that there's a black tortoise in your demon-subduing pagoda with the talent of ice force. I'd like to learn from its talent. Please do me a favor. Of course, this was all an excuse. Everything was just to enter the Shaolin Temple. If Arhat Taming Dragon wanted to return to Shaolin, he would inevitably have a conflict with the Devil Master Han Guang. Li Yu was very interested in the battle between Dharmakayas. Moreover, Li Yu also planned to learn from the various secret books in the Sutras Depository of Shaolin. He didn't really use the alternate account, Bai Zhe, just to show off. If he wanted to understand the fruit of Tao of this world, he had to use the identity of Bai Zhe to cultivate according to the skills of this world. Only then could he truly understand what the fruit of Tao was. After all, according to the characteristics of the fruit of Tao, it couldn't be speculated, described, or discussed. Once it was said, it would be wrong. Once it was thought, it would be wrong. There was no other way to understand it except for one's own understanding. Understanding the ice force of Black Tortoise? I see. Xian Ci felt the realm of Bai Zhe and knew that he had reached the critical stage of oneness of heaven and man. He had to perfect his interior so that he could reach the hidden latch without regret. Bai Zhe was famous for his ice sword qi. Understanding the ice force of Black Tortoise, he could learn by analogy. It was also a right path. This is not difficult. I'll make it happen. The young man in front of him was on good terms with his disciple. He could be considered one of them. If he could help, Xianxi would naturally help. Thank you, Master Xianxi. After bowing and thanking him, Bai Zhe officially stepped into the Shaolin Temple. Chapter 797. Almsgiver Bai, please take a rest in the Zen Heart Residence. Xianxi brought Bai Zhe to the Zen Heart Residence. After I report to the abbot, Almsgiver Bai can go to the demon-subduing pagoda to cultivate tomorrow. If Bai Zhe was a disciple of the temple, Xianxi could arrange for him to cultivate in the demon-subduing pagoda. But Bai Zhe was an outsider after all. He had to inform the abbot. The Shaolin abbot was still the evil master Han Guang. The real Shaolin abbot, Kong Wen, did not tell Xianxi anything other than not telling him that he had been to the Immensity Sea. After all, the evil master Han Guang was a Dharmakaya master. Once Xianxi knew that the Shaolin abbot was a fake, no matter how calm he would definitely give himself away in front of the fake abbot. When the evil master Han Guang found out that he had been exposed, he would destroy the entire Shaolin temple in a fit of anger. Thank you, Master Xianxi. As long as he could enter the Shaolin temple, Li Yu did not care whether he could really go to the demon-subduing pagoda. After Master Xianxi left, Li Yu released a spirit under the Zen Heart Residence. It floated out silently and fell into the Shaolin Sutras depository. Li Yu scanned the place with his divine sense, and all the books in the scriptures depository were stored in his mind. The 72 ultimate skills of the Shaolin Temple are the skills to prove the Dharmakaya. I can use this as a foundation to deduce the skills of this world. These Shaolin skills were ordinary. The strongest Dharma was only a Dharmakaya, not even an earth immortal. Moreover, after the earth immortal, there were divine immortal, legendary, creation, nirvana, and the final Tao fruit. However, the strongest cultivation technique that Li Yu had obtained in this world was the third style of the Buddha's palm. He could only deduce it through the Shaolin skills. Of course, the dominator of samsara in 6 realms even had the complete version of the Buddha's palm. But Li Yu did not trust the dominator of samsara in 6 realms, who was behind the scenes. Instead of spending time and effort to identify the tampering, he might as well start a new one and do it himself. With Li Yu's current cultivation level, in terms of the essence of power, he was only second to the Tao fruit realm. In terms of attack power and destructive power, it wasn't even inferior to the Tao fruit. It wouldn't be difficult for it to destroy an entire world. Therefore, Li Yu used the Shaolin secret scriptures and the third style of the Buddha's palm as a foundation to deduce a Dharma access that could reach the Nirvana realm. Then, he would think of a way to pursue the fruit of Tao. This was Li Yu's overall plan for this world. Of course, in the future, he would also have the opportunity to obtain the primary instruction of the Buddha's palm and the 7 strokes of heaven interception. Even after the return of the mighty figures, Li Yu could also take advantage of them. In essence, the cultivation methods of this world are also the path of essence, energy, and spirit. But in the end, the cultivation of spirit reached the pinnacle. The various cultivation techniques of the Shaolin Temple circulated in his mind. The true meaning of the third style of Buddha's palm was to command the overall situation. Soon, Li Yu had understood the essence of these cultivation techniques. So that's how it is. To enter the Tao with martial arts, isn't it the path of refining essence into qi, refining qi into spirit, refining spirit into void, and refining void into Tao? After understanding the essence, Li Yu was able to deal with it easily. Since Bai Zhe's smuff is taking the path of ice sword qi, then use ice as the foundation to deduce a Dharma access. Li Yu had already experimented with the path of ice sword qi. Taichu Motetsu, ice spirit divine light, extreme ice qi, and Little Tingting's lunar scripture and northern underworld mystical water scripture. These are all proven ice cultivation techniques that point directly to the great Tao. Combining the essence of this world's cultivation, he integrated the ice cultivation techniques that he had previously created into one. Then, he integrated the sword cultivation technique in the form of ice sword chi and directly deduced a real glacier sword art. In terms of power, one sword strike can freeze the galaxy. It can indeed be called the glacier sword art. In a moment, Liu created the glacier sword art that points directly to the other side. Fusing the sky-splitting sword art, great void sword chi, and the three sword arts from Heavenly Emperor Huang, grass character sword art, chaos calming art, and cutting immortal sword art. Then, he fused all the ice cultivation techniques that Liu has mastered and turned them into ice sword chi. This power is simply too terrifying. With this sword art, I can walk the path of cultivation in this world again with Bai Zai's smuff, and finally achieve the Tao fruit. In this way, it should be foolproof. Liu smiled and opened his eyes. At this point, the biggest goal of the trip to the Shaolin Temple has been completed. All that was left were the details. Benefactor Bai, Abbot has agreed. Benefactor Bai, please follow this poor monk to the demon-subduing tower. Early the next morning, Grandmaster Xian Ci came to the Zen Heart residence, and told Bai Zai that he could go to the demon-subduing tower to cultivate. Thank you, Grandmaster Xian Ci. Although it doesn't matter whether he goes to the demon-subduing tower or not, but since Xian Ci has already taken care of the matter, then he might as well go. Following Grandmaster Xian Ci all the way, the two arrived at the back mountain of the Shaolin Temple. After bypassing several peaks, Xian Ci took Bai Zai to the highest peak of the back mountain. The mountains were green and there were waterfalls and springs. At the foot of the mountain, there were streams and ponds. The clear ponds were full of golden lotuses. The Zen rhythm was leisurely, as if it was far away from the hustle and bustle of the world. As expected of the Chan Lin Holy Land, the scene in front of him, in Liu's eyes, was nothing. However, with the identity of Bai Zai, he naturally had to praise it. Benefactor is over-praising me. Xian Ci smiled indifferently and pointed to the valley ahead. Benefactor, the demon-subduing tower is over there. In the direction Xian Ci pointed, in the wide valley, there was a glazed pagoda that was overflowing with colorful lights. There were 7 levels to the pagoda, and a faint Buddhist light surrounded it. It was brilliant, illuminating the entire valley like a pure land. Elder Kong Jian, under the orders of the abbot, I am here to escort Benefactor Bai to the demon-subduing tower to cultivate. Xian Ci came to the front of the pagoda and bowed, stating his purpose. Amit Ba. A Buddhist chant sounded, and a door opened in the glazed pagoda. Benefactor Bai, this way please. Xian Ci pointed to the door in the glazed pagoda and gestured. Thank you, Grandmaster. After expressing his gratitude, Liu stepped into the glazed pagoda and into the demon-subduing tower. There were 7 levels in the pagoda, and each level was spacious. On the first level, there was a fire swan, a black tortoise, and a talkative descendant of the Kuan Pung. If I'm going to put on an act, I have to go all out. Liu walked into the first level and came to the cell where the black tortoise was imprisoned. He sat down cross-legged and put on a serious look, as if he was trying to feel the cold air of the black tortoise. There is really a big demon under the demon-subduing tower? After scanning the demon-subduing tower with his divine soul, Liu found that a big demon was really suppressed in the depths of the demon-subduing tower. A big demon in the Dharmakaya realm. Hey, what's your background? Liu was also curious about the big demon in the Dharmakaya realm suppressed at the bottom of the pagoda. He asked the big demon through his divine soul. I am Demon King Bai Zai, who are you? The big demon answered arrogantly. Demon King Bai Zai? Liu raised his eyebrows. My name is Bai Zai, how dare you call yourself Bai Zai? With a cold snort, Liu had already sentenced this Demon King Bai Zhe to death. Chapter 798. Anyway, since I'm idle, let's play a game. With a flick of his finger, an imperceptible halo flashed away, and silently fell into the body of Monster King Bai Zhe. The mighty soul power surged like a raging tide, and instantly drowned the soul of Monster King Bai Zhe. After some modifications, he ruthlessly made some changes. From today on, you are called Heize. How can the name Bai Zhe be used by others? His Majesty Emperor Yu is such a stingy person. Yes, Heize accepts the order. So, Monster King Heize was freshly made. Next, it's time to watch the show. According to Liu's estimation, Arhut Taming Dragon has already contacted his helpers, and should come back to take back his identity as Master Abbot. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, pretending to comprehend the cold energy of the black tortoise, Liu half closed his eyes and began to doze off. It's just that his plan to doze off has not yet been implemented, and his eyebrows twitched due to a strange noise. Another kid! Last time, the little monk ran away without listening to a few words from this king. This time, this king must speak to his heart's content. As I said last time, my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather, a weird ugly bird, was lying on the railing of the opposite cell, chattering non-stop. This bird is ugly. Its body is round like a ball, its 2 wings are short, covered with black feathers, and there is no beak on its head, but a fish-like mouth. This is the descendant of Kuan Purring with a broken mouth. Noise is really a kind of pollution. Liu was annoyed by the noise, and with a flick of his finger, a cold light flashed, and directly froze the ugly bird's mouth. Without the disturbance of this ugly bird, Liu dozed off. Oh, the process of comprehending the cold energy of the black tortoise was very smooth. 2 days passed in boredom. On the morning of the 3rd day, Liu opened his eyes. Is it finally here? In Liu's divine soul perception, Arhut Taming Dragon and a handsome old man with a long beard and a black scabbard sword appeared above the Shaolin Temple. Mr. Luda, the single-hearted sword? Upon sensing the long-bearded elder, Liu smiled and nodded. 1 man, 1 sword, 1 heart and 1 mind. This Mr. Luda is indeed extraordinary. Mr. Luda of Huamei Heights was a legend. He did not have exceptional talent, nor did he have a profound inheritance. He had only practiced an ordinary sword technique, and he had only practiced 1 sword technique. The biggest characteristic of this person was his single-mindedness. He was loyal and devoted to his wife. Even though his wife had been dead for many years, even though his sister-in-law was fresh and delicious and had even come to his doorstep to accompany him for decades, he had never changed his devotion to his deceased wife. It was the same for swordsmanship. Similarly, he was single-minded and devoted to his task. He had only practiced 1 sword technique in his life, and he had been practicing it so firmly, persistently, and unwaveringly. This stupid persistence had allowed him to practice to the Dharmakaya realm, to the 1st place on the heaven list, and to the point that no one could stop him. With this 1st place on the heaven list, coupled with Arhut Taming Dragon's 3rd place on the heaven list, even if the demon master Han Guang is the heavenly emperor of the myths, he can only run away. Liu was very appreciative of Abbot Kong Wen's actions. After all, in his own nest, the best way to deal with Han Guang was to deter him with absolute strength. Otherwise, once the fight starts, this 1,000-year-old temple will become history. The disciples in the temple will be directly shaken into powder by the aftermath. Clang! A sword roar shook the world. The sword was not out of the scabbard, but the sharp sword energy that seemed to tear the sky and split the earth had already shrouded the entire Shaolin Temple. Single-hearted sword? Han Guang, who was pretending to be the abbot, was pretending to be sitting cross-legged in the meditation room. His eyes were half closed, and he was rotating the prayer beads, looking like a senior monk. Sensing the sword chi that could split heaven and earth, this enlightened monk could no longer keep up the pretense. He jumped up with a face full of horror. Han Guang frowned, and his heart was full of doubts. Why would the single-hearted sword come to Shaolin Temple? What is he doing here? The demon master Han Guang had been pretending to be the abbot of Shaolin Temple for many years. The entire Shaolin Temple, and even countless people in the Jianghu, could not see any clues. But this was a person below the level of Dharmakaya. If he met another Dharmakaya master, this disguise would not be able to continue. Dharmakaya masters had their own territories, and they would not easily enter the range of strength of others. All these years, Han Guang had been pretending to be the abbot, and there had been no problems. Now that the single-hearted sword was here, this disguise could not continue. Amit Ba. Just as Han Guang was in doubt, another Buddhist chant sounded, and the mighty light of Buddha shone on the world. Arhat taming dragon? Damn it, who let him out? Yes, it must be the single-hearted sword. Hearing this Buddhist chant, Han Guang's eyebrows jumped, and he could no longer sit still. The Arhat taming dragon and the single-hearted sword came together. If he did not run, he would be courting death. Even if Shaolin was destroyed, and all the Shaolin monks were killed with one slap, but he would not be able to live. In Han Guang's heart, of course, his own life was the most important. Even if the lives of all the Shaolin people were threatened, the Arhat taming dragon would definitely not dare to act rashly. But the single-hearted sword only had his wife and sword in his heart. Who knew if he would directly cut down with his sword? Even if I want to run, I must have a foolproof plan. Otherwise, being chased by those two fellows is no laughing matter. Han Guang turned his head to look at the back of the mountain, and looked at the 7-story glazed pagoda. Demon King Bai Zhe is still suppressed there. Let this guy be my scapegoat. With a flash, Han Guang's figure appeared in front of the suppressing demon pagoda. He reached out and smashed the seal with one palm. Bai Zhe, I am Han Guang. I am here to save you. After smashing the seal, Han Guang shouted at the suppressing demon pagoda, and then turned to leave. In Han Guang's view, Demon King Bai Zhe had been sealed by Shaolin for many years, and had long been holding a grudge. This time, he would definitely vent his anger on the Shaolin monk. With Demon King Bai Zhe making trouble here, the Arhat taming dragon and the single-hearted sword could only join forces to suppress Demon King Bai Zhe. There was no time to chase and kill Han Guang, who ran away. This plan was perfect, it was flawless. However, who is calling me? When Han Guang shouted, Bai Zhe, I am Han Guang. I am here to save you, there was a response from the suppressing demon pagoda. However, Han Guang was shocked to find that this Bai Zhe was not the Demon King Bai Zhe he imagined, but a cold young man in white fluttering clothes. You? Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe? Where is Demon King Bai Zhe? Where is he? Han Guang instantly remembered the origin of the person in front of him. 2 days ago, Xian Ci reported that the Glacier Swordsman would come to the suppressing demon pagoda to meditate, and he even agreed. It's just that. I clearly opened the seal and released Demon King Bai Zhe, right? How did it become this Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe? My name is Heize. A furious roar could be heard as a middle-aged bulky man with a boundless aura and a towering demonic aura rushed out from the crowd. Han Guang was stunned, and faintly felt that something seemed to be wrong. Chapter 799. Oh, Black Swamp Demon King, I am Han Guang, and I came to help you get out of trouble. At this time, Han Guang had no time to investigate whether it was Bai Zhe or Black Swamp, and quickly asked for help. Demon King, Shaolin has suppressed you for many years, and I came to rescue you. These words not only pointed out Shaolin's hatred for suppressing the Demon King, but also showed that he was on the same side. It was concise and went straight to the point. Han Guang's response was very sophisticated and skillful. Bai Zhe, who had been suppressed for many years, would definitely hate Shaolin after hearing these words, and he would definitely kill a few bald thieves to vent his anger. At that time, he would have enough opportunity to escape. What's more, even if Bai Zhe did not vent his anger on Shaolin, it would be much easier to deal with the two of them together, and the chance to escape would be much greater. But there was a black hand outside the rules, and things were different. Bastard! How dare you slander Shaolin monks? The Black Swamp Demon King suddenly roared in anger. I have been enlightened by the Shaolin monks, and I have already changed my ways and turned over a new leaf. Didn't you see that I even changed my name? My name is Black Swamp, not Bai Zhe, nor Demon King. Hearing Black Swamp Demon King's words, everyone was stunned. Even Arhut Taming Dragon and Mr. Luda, who were releasing momentum in the air, were obviously stunned. Shaolin Buddhism is really extraordinary. Even Bai Zhe, oh no, Black Swamp, such a peerless demon king, can turn over a new leaf. Buddhism saves all living beings, and its merit is boundless. Single-hearted sword, Mr. Luda came back to his senses and praised Arhut Taming Dragon with admiration. It's all the merit of the senior monk. Arhut Taming Dragon smiled with a gratified face, and a little joy secretly grew in his heart. Shaolin's purpose of saving evil is really effective. Didn't you see that even Demon King Bai Zhe, oh Demon King Black Swamp, had been converted by Buddhism? From now on, there is no Bai Zhe, only Monk Black Swamp. Ba. Black Swamp, who was full of demon aura, even came out with a Buddhist name. F***ck your mother. At this moment, Han Guang was already cursing. You're obviously a F***king demon, okay? What kind of F***king human are you? The races were all different. Bai Zhe had to turn over a new leaf. Countless ancestors of the Yao race would crawl out of their graves in anger. The countless juniors of the monster race would cry themselves unconscious in the toilet. You must have gone stupid from being locked up. Han Guang cursed angrily and turned to run. Initially, he thought that he had found a helper, but in the end, it turned out to be a brain-damaged idiot. The current situation was that he had to face 3 Dharmakaya enemies alone. Even if I were made of iron, I wouldn't be able to withstand 3 Dharmakaya masters at once. There was still a chance of survival if he ran. If he didn't run, only death awaited him. In a flash, Han Guang leaped into the air and soared into the sky. Kong said to be benevolent, Meng said to be righteous. With an impassioned roar, the white, Black Swamp Demon King burst out a monstrous demon aura and rushed up to the sky, attacking Han Guang without hesitation. Huh! Hearing this, Arhut Taming Dragon and Mr. Luda looked at each other. Isn't it Buddhist enlightenment? You call yourself Monk Black Swamp, and then shout out this kind of Confucian slogan. Is it really appropriate to do this? Maybe, he's still a beginner and can't tell the difference between Buddhism and Confucianism. Arhut Taming Dragon could only explain in this way. Even he didn't believe it. At this time, Black Swamp Demon King made an even more terrifying move. Evil Master Han Guang brings disaster to the world. Today, I'll sacrifice myself to eliminate the evil. Sacrifice yourself for a righteous cause, sacrifice yourself for righteousness today. In the inexplicably horrified eyes of everyone, the Black Swamp Demon King, who had changed his ways, was enlightened, was impassioned, and righteous. Oh, Monk Black Swamp, shouted the Confucian slogan and actually, suddenly, blew himself up. What the F***ck? Evil Master Han Guang only had time to curse before he was drowned in the light of the explosion. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. The sky changed color, and the sun and moon lost their light. The power of the Dharmakaya Master's self-explosion seemed to blow a huge hole in the sky. Ba! Even Arhut Taming Dragon was startled by this commotion. He hurriedly revealed his golden body and used all his strength to release a mighty Buddha's light, enveloping the entire Shaolin temple and protecting it in the Buddha's light. Boom! The sky fell and the earth cracked. Apart from Mount Liantai, countless mountains in the surrounding area had collapsed. Within 100 miles, it exploded into ruins. Black Swamp Demon King is so unyielding. Mr. Luda's eyes widened, and he couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. A Dharmakaya master, a demon king, suddenly blew himself up just like that? Calling himself Monk Black Swamp, and shouting the Confucian slogan, "Is this Buddhist brainwashing? Oh, the power of enlightenment! Or is it the virtue of Confucianism?" Mr. Luda took a step back without a trace, slightly distancing himself from Arhat Taming Dragon. Self-explosion is something that even the number 1 on the heavenly list can't withstand. You monks are too scary, accidentally blowing yourself up. This old man can't stand your torment, you guys go play by yourselves. This should be because he read some random books and randomly understood some specious truths. Although he has turned over a new leaf, but his temper is still too unyielding, and he has lost the compassion of Buddhism. Excellent, excellent. Arhat Taming Dragon shook his head and sighed for a while. He was very happy about Black Swamp's reformation, but he also sighed deeply about Black Swamp's unyielding self-explosion. If this old monk came back earlier and knew about Black Swamp's situation, he would definitely preach to him, clarify the truth of Buddhism, and reverse the truth that he randomly comprehended. Enlightening the Demon King to become a senior monk, the merit is boundless. Unfortunately, being trapped in the projection of the Ananda secret realm 4 decades, I missed it. Amitabha, Black Swamp. What a pity. Arhat Taming Dragon chanted the name of Buddha and sighed deeply. At this point, the excitement of Shaolin Temple was over. The battle of Dharmakayas is over just like that. After messing around, this battle of Dharmakayas that should have happened was turned into a terrorist attack. Liu was very satisfied with this. I did a ruthless experiment on Black Swamp. The realm of Dharmakayas is exactly the same as what I deduced. With a smile, he walked back to the first floor of the demon subduing pagoda, sat outside the black tortoise's cage again, and began to pretend to comprehend the cold air of the black tortoise. There is nothing left in Shaolin Temple. Where should I go next? Su Wuming's Shi Jian Pavilion or the Zhenwu sect? These 2 sects both have the inheritance of the 7 strokes of heaven interception, which seems to be worth my attention. In order to let White Swamp achieve the fruit of Tao in this world, he still needed to learn from many martial arts. Therefore, Liu turned his attention to other sects. Without an acquaintance's recommendation, White Swamp can't enter the Shi Jian Pavilion. Then let's go to the Zhenwu sect. Isn't Little Meng also going to the Zhenwu sect? I can ask him to recommend me. After making up his mind, Liu dozed off in Shaolin Temple and planned to go to the Zhenwu sect in a few days. Chapter 800. Su Meng, the Gentleman's Sword? A few days later, Liu left the Shaolin Temple and went down the river. He planned to go to Xuanwu City in the north of Ningzhou to ask for help from the Zhenwu sect. He passed by the 3 mountains and 4 waters in the Qinshan area of Longzhou and suddenly heard Little Meng's new nickname. The title of Gentleman's Sword is a curse to transmigrators. The original Gentleman's Sword, Mr. Yu, was cut off in the end. There was no more. He wanted to change the names of Reckless Monk and Thunderblade Furious Monk, but he got an even more vicious nickname. Little Meng would vomit blood? I really want to see Little Meng's expression now. Young man, you have to work harder on your path of acting tough. With a gloating smile on his face, Liu secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, Bai Zai's Smuff, Glacier Swordsman, is still passable. If he got a nickname like Gentleman's Sword, I would vomit blood too. A few days later, Ning Province's Xuanwu City could be seen in the distance. 20 miles north of Xuanwu City was the Zhenwu sect. The city was actually under the control of the Zhenwu sect. The The Great Jin imperial court only had nominal control over Xuanwu City. Zhang Yuanshan, one of the three lay families of the Zhenwu sect. The Zhang mansion is in Xuanwu City. After getting off the boat, Liu officially stepped into the city in the hinterland of the central region. Because the city was under the jurisdiction of the Zhenwu sect, no martial arts heroes dared to cause trouble in Xuanwu City. The city was very peaceful. As a result, Xuanwu City, which was the gateway of the Zhenwu sect to the outside world, was unexpectedly prosperous. There were many carriages and people. Walking into the city, he saw a bustling scene. I don't know Zhang Yuanshan, so I have to find Little Meng. Little Meng should be in Xuanwu City by now. Liu released his spirit and scanned the city. He found that Little Meng was not in Xuanwu City, but in a small town at the foot of Zhenwu Mountain. This guy is drinking with Zhang Yuanshan in a shabby tavern? Liu smiled and turned to walk towards the town called Copper Dragon Town. Tomlong Town was located on the west side of the mountain gate of Zhenwu sect. It was only about 20 miles away from Xuanwu City. Even if Liu didn't use any supernatural powers, it would only take him a moment to reach the town with the lightness skill of Bai Zhe. Little Meng, Big Brother's heart is bitter. In the tavern, Zhang Yuanshan was holding a wine jug and gulping it down. His breath reeked of alcohol as he complained to Little Meng. My family wants me to marry junior sister Mingxi of the Song family. I like Fu Xinjin, but I can't refuse my family's wishes. Our Zhang clan isn't as glorious as it seems on the surface. There were three great lay families in Zhenwu: the Zhang family, the Song family, and the Yao family. Now, the Zhang family's situation is not good. We haven't had a grandmaster for many years. Being suppressed by the Yao family, the situation is not optimistic. Under these circumstances, I can only marry junior sister Mingxi. The Zhang family and the Song family can join hands to fight the Yao family. I've been raised by my family and have high hopes placed on me. I have no choice. After pouring out his grievances, Zhang Yuanshan picked up the wine jug and gulped it down. Senior brother Zhang, I'll keep you company. Little Meng really couldn't interfere with such family matters and emotional entanglements. He could only drink with him. Come, let's drink. Today, let's drink 300 cups. Lifting the wine jug, Little Meng roared heroically. 300 cups? How about 3 cups? Just as Little Meng was bragging, a sneer came from outside the tavern. A gust of cold wind blew in. It seemed to have lowered the temperature by a few degrees. Brother Bai, you're here. Feeling the chill, Little Meng's eyes lit up. He laughed and stood up. Come in. Let's drink again. His white robe fluttered as Glacier Swordsman stepped into the shabby tavern. This is Glacier Swordsman? Zhang Yuanshan had never seen Bai Zhe before, but he had heard Little Meng talk about him. When he saw Glacier Swordsman, he was so shocked that he sobered up. First on the ranking list of young masters, 9 apertures / of the exterior. This was a martial arts legend. That's me. Glacier Swordsman unceremoniously walked to the table and sat down. He reached out and picked up a wine jug. Glacier Swordsman nodded lightly. Liu wanted to use Zhang Yuanshan to climb Martial Mountain and get the 7 strokes of heaven interception of the Zhenwu sect. Naturally, he had to meet Zhang Yuanshan face to face. I just came out of Shaolin. Master Xian Ci took care of me and let me feel the cold chi of the black tortoise in the demon-subduing pagoda. Thank you. He lifted the wine jug and gestured to Little Meng. Liu tilted his head back and emptied the jug in one gulp. Damn. Brother Bai's alcohol tolerance. Little Meng was so scared that he shuddered. He felt depressed again. A Jianghu hero's alcohol tolerance was also a way to show off. Didn't you see Master Qiao of the Beggar sect show off when he drank? But alcohol tolerance was another reason for Little Meng's sadness. The 3 of them were all Jianghu heroes. Well, Liu should count as well. Opening the way with wine, they soon got along well with each other and found each other congenial. Glacier Swordsman was first on the ranking list of young masters and a good friend of Little Meng. Soon, Zhang Yuanshan no longer treated Bai Zhe as an outsider. He poured out his grievances, describing his emotional entanglement and his family's expectations. That's easy. Glacier Swordsman didn't seem to care about Zhang Yuanshan's entanglement at all. He waved his hand calmly and pointed out the right path. Isn't the conflict between the Zhen Wu secular sects, a conflict of martial strength? Your Zhang family has a grandmaster ancestor, but he's running out of life. He's worried that he won't be able to keep the family in check, so he wants you to marry him. Glacier Swordsman put down the wine jug and smiled. There are two solutions. The first is to prolong your life. Let your ancestor live for another 60 years, and the Zhang family situation will naturally be resolved. The second is to quickly advance your 9 acupores, condense the interior, and achieve oneness of heaven and men. Show this kind of potential, and this is the disposition of a grandmaster, who dares to look down on you. These two solutions were indeed good. There were no problems with the righteous path. But it was easy for him to say that. Was it so easy to obtain something that could prolong one's life? That thing was priceless. Even if the Zhang family was rich, it would be amazing if they could afford a pill. Moreover, was it something that could be bought just because they wanted it? As for the second reason, it was even more wishful thinking. Was it possible to advance one's cultivation just because they wanted to? Brother Bai, I'm ashamed. I'm not talented enough to break through. Zhang Yuanshan let out a long sigh and remained silent. As for the first plan, Zhang Yuanshan didn't even dare to think about the life-prolonging pills. What's so difficult about that? He handed over a jade bottle. Here's a century peach elixir. It can prolong one's life by 100 years. I'll give it to you. For Li Yu, an elixir that could prolong one's life by 100 years, could only be fed to dogs. Any one of the elixirs of immortality and longevity in the garden of the immortal mansion could allow the great emperor to live another life. It couldn't be easier to prolong the life of a grandmaster of the 7th level of the exterior by 100 years. Prolong one's life by 100 years? Century peach elixir? Zhang Yuanshan was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. As for Little Meng, his mouth was wide open and he couldn't close it for a long time. Oh my God! Brother White, how could he be this rich? What he casually tossed out were all priceless treasures. Chapter 801. This elixir. He grabbed the jade bottle with trembling hands and opened the cap. A refreshing fragrance and vitality filled the air, making him feel comfortable as if every part of his body was glowing. Brother Bai, I can't accept it. This elixir was very important to Zhang Yuanshan. With this elixir, the Zhang family's situation would be solved, and his own problem would be solved. But this was too precious. Although Bai Zhe and Little Meng were sworn friends, Zhang Yuanshan and Little Meng were sworn friends. But this was the first time he met Bai Zhe. Bai Zhe will never take back what I've given out. If you don't want it, I'll throw it away. His tone was light and his face was cold. Bai Zhe didn't even raise his head. He picked up the wine jar and continued drinking. Okay, I can't thank you enough. Zhang Yuanshan took a deep breath, put away the bottle, and solemnly saluted. Then he picked up the wine jar and raised it in front of Bai Zhe. Brother Bai, I salute you. He picked up the wine jar, stretched his neck, and imitated Bai Zhe. He actually drank the whole jar in one gulp. You guys are ruthless. Little Meng's mouth twitched a few times. He picked up the wine jar several times, but he couldn't summon the courage to finish it in one gulp. With my current alcohol tolerance, I'll be drunk to death, right? I'll definitely be drunk to death, right? Brother Zhang, you'd better take back the elixir that Brother Bai gave you. After reminding Zhang Yuanshan, Little Meng directly stood up. He really didn't want to see these two wine buckets showing off their alcohol tolerance. The feeling of being crushed in alcohol tolerance was really unpleasant. Should he ask the dominator of samsara in 6 realms to improve his alcohol tolerance next time? As soon as this idea came into his mind, it was extinguished. It was really intolerable to the heavens to use karma points on this. Yes, business is more important. Zhang Yuanshan threw away the wine jar and bowed deeply to Bai Zhe. I can't thank you enough. Brother Bai, I'll never forget your kindness. Let's send you back. Bai Zhe also stood up and turned his head to look outside the pub. After all, someone has been eavesdropping for a long time. Who knows what he's thinking? Hearing Bai Zhe's words, Zhang Yuanshan's expression changed greatly. With a clang, he unsheathed his sword with a look of vigilance. Since he had such a precious treasure, he naturally had to be careful that someone would try to rob him of his treasure. Even though they were in the territory of the Zhenwu sect, their own people might be in more danger than outsiders. How could I, the yin-yang sword Yao Xinghen, be such a shameless person? At this time, an angry snort came from outside the house. A 14 or 15-year-old youth, carrying a long and a short sword on his back, walked into the tavern angrily. Junior brother Yao. Seeing this young man, Zhang Yuanshan frowned. This Yao Xinghen was currently the most powerful of the 3 lay families of the Zhenwu sect. He was the one who had suppressed the Zhang family to the point of suffocation. The Yao clan appeared here and even eavesdropped on the matter of the century peach pill. Could it be? In an instant, Zhang Yuanshan's mind flashed with the countless scenes of the Yao family intercepting and snatching away the 100-life peach pills. Senior martial brother Zhang, I just heard that you have a friend with extraordinary martial arts, so I came to ask for some advice. Don't think too much. Yao Xinghen shook his head at Zhang Yuanshan. The elders of the family compete for the benefits of the sect. There are some conflicts, but we're all from the same sect. We can compete, but we won't harm each other. Senior martial brother Zhang, don't you understand this principle? You're right, junior martial brother. Zhang Yuanshan sighed and smiled. I'm overthinking. Speaking of this, Zhang Yuanshan pointed at Bai Zhe and Little Meng. These two are my friends. One is Glacier Swordsman, number 1 on the ranking list of young masters, and the other is Thunder, Blade Maniac Su Meng. Little Meng quickly took over the conversation and stopped Zhang Yuanshan from saying, Thunder Blade Furious Monk. Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe? The martial arts legend of the 9 apertures / of the exterior? He's indeed peerless. Hearing the name of Glacier Swordsman, Yao Xinghen's eyes lit up, his face full of admiration. But when he heard Little Meng's name, he was puzzled. Isn't Reckless Monk 33rd on the ranking list of young masters? Blade Maniac Su Meng? In the 3 Mountains and 4 Waters region, there's Gentleman Sword Su Meng. Who's Blade Maniac Su Meng? Little Meng was about to vomit blood. Reckless Monk is one thing, but now there's a Gentleman's Sword. Can't we just have fun with them? A gentleman's sword would rather break than bend. His character is very similar to Little Meng's. Zhang Yuanshan didn't know what was going on, so he added another stab. Senior martial brother Zhang, Little Meng looked bitter. We're on the same side. Don't insult me, okay? I want to learn from Reckless Monk. Glancing at Bai Zhe and Little Meng, Yao Xinghen finally chose Little Meng to challenge. After all, his strength was far inferior to Glacier Swordsman's. Challenging him to learn from him was not asking for trouble. Blade Maniac! Little Meng corrected him fiercely. He took a step forward and drew his long saber from his back. Come, I'll teach you how to be a good man. Feeling depressed, Little Meng naturally wanted to vent his anger on Yao Xinghen. I'd like to learn from you. Although Yao Xingliu didn't understand Little Meng's strange words, he knew they weren't good words. He drew 2 swords from his back, one long and one short. Without saying anything, he drew a different half-arc with the swords in his hands. Yin and yang were combined, and the sword style was perfectly round. The long sword in his right hand was strong and yang, while the short sword in his left hand was cold and soft. Yin and yang were combined, and the arc-shaped force rippled out, as if yin and yang were circulating. Yin and Yang's sword, you're really something. Little Meng laughed heartily and swung his saber. Mortal dust fall. This was the second style of Ananda oath-breaking bladesmanship. When the saber was swung, the mortal dust rolled. This move stirred up Yao Xinghan's mind. All the memories from his childhood to adulthood flowed in his mind. His strict father, kind mother, and the love of his brothers and sisters all came to his mind. Of course, he also remembered his mischief when he was a child, which his father severely punished. More importantly, he remembered his youthful and ignorant feelings. She was a gentle and amiable girl. Since the first time he saw her, her figure had always lingered in his mind and appeared in his dreams. However, a few days ago, he suddenly heard a piece of news. The girl he had a crush on was going to be engaged to Zhang Yuanshan. It was like being struck by lightning. The youthful boy felt as if the sky was about to collapse. Song Mingxi. He muttered to himself and unconsciously called out the name engraved in his heart. TSK. A strange laugh sounded, and the cold blade was already on his neck. Yao Xinghan suddenly woke up. What did I say just now? The biggest secret in his heart was exposed. At this moment, Yao Xinghan was at a loss and his face was full of panic. So it's senior brother Zhang's rival in love. Hearing the name, Song Mingxi, everyone understood what was going on. This Yao boy had no other intentions but to find trouble with his rival in love. Hearing the words, rival in love, Yao Xinghan screamed and ran away covering his face. Boy, you have to work hard to win your girl's heart. I have faith in you. Little Meng ruthlessly stabbed him. Yao Xinghan, who was running far away, staggered and ran faster. Century Peach Elixir? 100 years of life extension? Not long after, Zhang Yuanshan returned home and handed the elixir given to him by Bai Zhe to the patriarch of the Zhang family. There's actually such a divine item? Opening the bottle and seeing the crystal-clear elixir, the patriarch's hands trembled as he felt the vast vitality that seemed to bring spring back to life. Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe gave it to you? To be able to give away such a precious treasure, Glacier Swordsman's background is extraordinary. To give you such a precious treasure, your friendship is extraordinary. Not bad. Not bad. This person's future is limitless. If you have such a relationship with him, you'll be a huge foreign aid to the Zhang family in the future. Yuanshan is steady and steady. You're truly my family's Qilin. The patriarch was pleasantly surprised and praised Zhang Yuanshan endlessly. With this elixir, the patriarch could live for another 100 years. Within 100 years, the Zhang family would have a high chance of producing another grandmaster. This way, the Zhang family's predicament would be easily solved. Chapter 802. Brother Bai, this is the ascension of flying immortals, one of the 10 great sights of Martial Mountain. The next day, the Zhang family's patriarch swallowed the elixir and regained his vigor. His white hair turned blue, and he returned to his prime and gained 100 years of life. The entire Zhang family was in an uproar. Thus, their great benefactor, the Glacier Swordsman, became the bodhisattva of the Zhang family. Under the strict request of the family, Zhang Yuanshan found Bai Zhe early in the morning and tried to build a relationship with him so that he could travel Martial Mountain with Bai Zhe. Although Zhang Yuanshan was disgusted by this kind of utilitarian approach, as long as he didn't have any utilitarian intentions and treated him like a friend, it was fine. Little Meng didn't come along. Because, when he woke up in the morning, Little Meng found that his wig was made of a ponytail. Little Meng was furious. Little Meng was now in an inn in Xuanwu City, working hard to cultivate the qi and blood nourishment technique taught by the glacier swordsman. He wanted his bald head to grow hair as soon as possible. Well, the so-called qi and blood nourishment technique was what Li Yu summarized as the human immortal martial path. His Majesty Emperor Yu couldn't help but do the same to Little Meng, who had been harmed by countless people. Li Yu didn't have any ill intentions. He just left an observation point to record Little Meng's cultivation insights so that Li Yu's smuff, by Zhe, could have a clear reference point. The primitive Emperor Little Meng's path of cultivation must be absolutely correct, and it must lead to the Tao fruit. When Little Meng's cultivation reached a level where he could detect this observation point, he would automatically erase it. The 10 sites of Martial Mountain are indeed extraordinary. Bai Zhe was born in the Tsangyue Kingdom, south of the Immensity Sea, under the snowy mountains, and north of the Ice River. Naturally, he had rarely seen the beautiful scenery of the central mainland, so he naturally had to praise it. In fact, after setting foot on Martial Mountain, Li Yu released a strand of his spirit to search for the inheritance of the 7 strokes of heaven interception. Tao birth and Tao destruction was the 7 strokes of heaven interception obtained by the Zhen Wu sect. It was said that the inheritance of this sword came from the Demon Buster Emperor of the Northern Xianming True Martial Path. This was also the origin of the name Zhen Wu sect. The 7 Swords of Heaven Interception is a Taoist cultivation technique. It's rather similar to my own system. Compared to the Buddha's palm, the sword that the Zhen Wu sect obtained is more valuable. His soul swept through the encampment of the Zhen Wu sect. In addition to emptying the scripture depository, he also made a copy of the sword Intent Inheritance in the Zhen Wu cave. What was truly valuable was actually only one of the 7 strokes of heaven interception, Tao birth and Tao destruction. For Li Yu, the cultivation method comprehended by the other true martial arts masters in the past was not essential. Although the philosophies of Buddhism and Taoism are somewhat different, in essence they are the same. With Li Yu's level, he quickly understood the essence of Tao birth and Tao annihilation, after withdrawing his spirit and bringing the sword intent of Tao birth and Tao annihilation into his mind. This was a sword technique, and what it demonstrated was its lethality. Tao birth and Tao destruction was, in fact, controlling the great Tao of heaven and earth. With a slash of the sword, Tao birth and Tao annihilation could be achieved with a single thought. In addition to the lethality it displayed, this sword also embodied the essence of cultivation. As expected, in this world, both Buddhism and Taoism follow the path of martial arts. They still cultivate essence into qi, qi into spirit, spirit into void, and void into Tao. However, the final Tao integration was not to control the rules of heaven and earth, but to create a Tao fruit. This was very interesting. While following Zhang Yuanshan to tour the beautiful scenery of Zhenwu, he exclaimed and gave appropriate comments from time to time. It really looked like he was touring the magnificent scenery of Zhenwu. In fact, the foundation of the Zhenwu sect had been emptied by Li Yu. For Li Yu, who could divide his mind into billions of parts, multitasking was too low-level. It was normal for him to multitask. He left a part of his spirit to control his body and follow Zhang Yuanshan to tour the Zhenwu sect. The rest of his spirit and consciousness were constantly analyzing the sword moves of the sky-severing sword manual. Putting aside the power of the sword technique, he directly analyzed its essence and understood the fundamental concept of this cultivation method. Thus, Li Yu's self-created glacier sword technique was more suitable for this world. This was the reason why Li Yu referred to this world's cultivation method. If it were not for the Tao fruit and the glacier sword technique to fully fit this world, Li Yu would not have to go through so much trouble. Any of the cultivation techniques that he had collected over the years would not be inferior to this sword technique. Under the analysis of billions of parts of his spirit, the essence of Tao birth and Tao annihilation had been thoroughly studied by Li Yu. I can't just give away the benefits I got from the Zhen Wu sect. Previously, when he messed around in the Shaolin Temple, he actually did the Shaolin Temple a big favor by eliminating two big enemies. The Zhen Wu sect also had to give a gift in return. Looking up at Zhang Yuanshan, who was leading the way, Li Yu's lips curled into a smile. Young man, you've helped this poor priest. This poor priest will also give you a gift. With an idea in mind, Li Yu followed Zhang Yuanshan and traveled all the way. Brother Bai, this is the sword testing cliff. Zhang Yuanshan pointed to a straight and steep cliff in front of them and introduced it to Li Yu. This is the cliff where the founder tested his sword technique after he comprehended it. This cliff was cut out by the founder's sword. In front of them was a towering mountain. However, this mountain was cut in half by someone, and what greeted them was a smooth and steep cliff. The power of a single sword is so great. As a swordsman, Bai Zhe naturally had to show his admiration for this sword technique. But in Li Yu's mind, he had already made up his mind. Since this is the place where the founder tested his sword technique, then, it's very normal for the founder to leave some opportunities for the younger disciples. Without leaving a trace, he flicked his finger, and an undetectable light spot instantly fell into the huge cliff in front of them. Brother Bai, every time I see the sword testing cliff, my blood will boil. Isn't this the goal of our cultivation? Zhang Yuanshan said as he walked to the cliff. He reached out his hand to touch the smooth cliff and exclaimed, Dharmakaya realm, earth immortal realm, what extraordinary power! As he was speaking, Zhang Yuanshan, who touched the cliff, suddenly trembled. Clang! A shocking sword light suddenly appeared in his mind. Tearing the sky and cutting the clouds, destroying the heaven and earth. When this sword was cut out, it was as if yin and yang were circulating, life and death were reincarnated, flowers bloomed and withered, and Tao was born and Tao was destroyed. This is Tao was born and Tao was destroyed? This sword technique is still here? Zhang Yuanshan was surprised and happy. He actually obtained the highest inheritance of his sect just like that? Zhang Yuanshan, who was immersed in the sword intent, did not know that when he touched the cliff, a huge change occurred in the outside world as well. Clang! A sword light shot up into the sky and into the clouds. The entire sword testing cliff exploded with endless light, as if this huge cliff had turned into a long sword that reached the heavens. The sword rushed out, shaking the heaven and earth. At this moment, everyone on Marshall Mountain was shocked. They all looked at the sword trial cliff in horror. The sword testing cliff? Could it be that the founder really left a sword aura in the sword testing cliff? Many figures whizzed up and sped toward the sword testing cliff. That's Zhang Yuanshan? Did he cause this phenomenon? At this moment, Zhang Yuanshan was the center of attention. Young man, I'm giving you an opportunity. Don't thank me. Li Yu laughed secretly and stood with his hands behind his back. He looked amazed. The Zhen Wu sect is indeed an orthodox sect. Even a cliff has such a powerful sword aura. It's so mighty. Chapter 803. Zhang Yuanshan became famous. All the old Taoists of the Zhen Wu sect treated him like a treasure. This was because he had discovered the peerless inheritance left behind by the patriarch. He had obtained the peerless inheritance left behind by the patriarch. More importantly, he was the only one who had obtained it. Countless people who came later all gave it a try, but they were unable to draw out the sword qi from the cliff. They were unable to sense the sword qi inheritance anymore. Yin-yang sword. This swordsmanship that alternated life and death and cycled endlessly was called yin and yang swordsmanship. His Majesty Emperor Yu wanted to save trouble and directly named it as such. This was a swordsmanship that Li Yu had derived after comprehending the essence of Tao birth and Tao destruction. It was on par with Zhenwu's 7 strokes scripture. The patriarch left behind such an inheritance, and we haven't obtained it after so many years? We're ashamed to let this peerless sword technique be covered in dust. Fortunately, Zhang Yuanshan obtained the inheritance. Otherwise, our Zhenwu sect's peerless technique would be covered in dust for many years. From the overwhelming sword qi, the group of old Taoists of Zhenwu all sensed the aura that came from their own sect and came from the same lineage. Moreover, the sword qi burst out from the place where their patriarch tested his sword. Therefore, they had no doubt about it at all. This was naturally the inheritance left behind by the patriarch. Well, Li Yu, the supreme patriarch, smiled and said nothing. Patriarchs, I can't describe or write about this sword technique. Surrounded by a group of old Taoists, who stared at him with shining eyes, Zhang Yuanshan felt great pressure. Patriarchs, I can only feel this yin-yang sword. My realm is not high enough to describe it. Zhang Yuanshan was overjoyed that he had obtained this sword technique inheritance by accident. However, he really could not describe this sword technique. It's normal that you can't describe a Dharmakaya sword technique. Although the old Taoists were eager, they could only sigh regretfully. We must cultivate Zhang Yuanshan into a Dharmakaya. Even if he doesn't become a Dharmakaya, he must at least become a half-step Dharmakaya. Even if we have to use resources, we must make him a half-step Dharmakaya. Without the realm of half-step to Dharmakaya, it was impossible to describe this swordsmanship. In order to pass down this peerless swordsmanship in the sect, the group of old Taoists reached a consensus. At this moment, Zhang Yuanshan was the sect's most precious treasure. As a result, Zhang Yuanshan, the guy who stepped on dog shit, became the most popular person in the Zhenwu sect. Countless disciples of the Zhenwu sect beat their chests and stomped their feet. Why did Zhang Yuanshan go today? Why didn't I go to the sword testing cliff? If I go, this peerless inheritance of the yin and yang sword will be mine. There were inheritances at the sword testing cliff, but what about other places? Was there an inheritance as well? As a result, the entire Zhenwu sect was in a frenzy to find the ancestral master's legacy. One by one, the disciples of the true martial sect drilled into the pile of old books to study the whereabouts of the patriarch and search for the patriarch's footprint. So much so that they didn't even let go of the ancestral master's toilet. As for the crazy actions of these true martial disciples, Li Yu thought, "Young man, you think too much. If I don't do it, you won't get anything even if you stay in the sword testing cliff for the rest of your life." Since the Zhenwu sect had done such a big thing, Li Yu naturally couldn't continue his travels. While the Zhang family's patriarch expressed his gratitude, Li Yu was escorted down the mountain. Now that the Zhenwu sect is done, where should I go next? Li Yu looked around and found that he had nowhere to go for the time being. I'll settle down for a while and incorporate the essence of the Zhenwu sect's Tao birth and Tao destruction into the glacier sword technique. After leaving the mountain, although the Zhang family repeatedly invited him to stay, Li Yu didn't plan to stay in the Zhenwu sect any longer. He immediately bid farewell and left. "Brother, bye. Brother, bye." Before Li Yu could walk out of Xuanwu City, little Meng yelled and rushed up to him. "Brother Bai, the qi and blood nourishment technique you taught me is really amazing. Look, my hair is growing out." Little Meng grabbed a strand of hair and waved it at Li Yu excitedly. "I came across this secret technique by accident. It's very useful for regulating the body and nourishing the qi and blood." Li Yu nodded at little Meng, then turned his head away with a look of disdain. "Young man, you're a man. Isn't it too girly to stroke a strand of hair like that?" "Huh. Seeing Li Yu's expression, little Meng instantly realized the problem. He quickly let go of the strand of hair and coughed dryly. Brother Bai, this secret technique seems to have a lot of potential. After I started practicing it, I found that the Golden Bell Shield technique seemed to have improved a lot. I don't know about that. I specialize in swordsmanship. I'm not interested in body refining techniques. Since it's useful, you can continue to practice it. The qi and blood nourishment technique that Li Yu taught him was actually the human immortal martial path. However, Li Yu only left behind the practice method and no description of the power of the realm. Therefore, little Meng didn't know that this magical power could be reborn from a drop of blood and had a myriad of changes. Compared to the 8-9 mysterious art that he planned to practice, in terms of changes, it was more than just 3 heads and 6 arms, and 72 transformations. If he continued to practice it, would little Meng have another title like Shinjun of 100 Transformations, or Myriad Transformations Master in the future? Li Yu actually had some mischievous expectations. Brother Bai, I can't thank you enough for your generosity. After practicing for a while, little Meng realized that this qi and blood nourishment technique had an extraordinary origin. It wasn't just for regulating the body and nourishing the qi and blood, as Bai Zhe said. You're welcome. Li Yu waved his hand indifferently. Bai Zhe, this alternate account, had such a cold personality. Since he was putting on an act, Li Yu naturally had to act in accordance with his identity. In fact, the human immortal martial path that Li Yu taught him didn't conflict with little Meng's future path and wouldn't interfere with his cultivation path. This human immortal martial path that only cultivated the body and cultivated it didn't conflict with any other cultivation path. After all, no matter what cultivation method one practiced, the body was the foundation. There were only benefits to having a strong body. There wouldn't be any conflicts. Brother Bai, yesterday on Martial Mountain, the sword Qi soared into the sky. Today, the Zhang family reported that senior brother Zhang obtained the ancestral master's inheritance. I'm afraid I won't be able to go out for a while. Little Meng looked up at Li Yu. Brother Bai, what plans do you have for your next trip? I don't have any plans. I'm just going to travel around Jianghu and meet the heroes of the world. I'm going to perfect my interior and break through to the exterior in one go. This was indeed the cultivation path of the alternate account Bai Zhe. Although, if he wanted to break through, he could directly rush to the Nirvana realm and was only one step away from the fruit of Tao. However, it was hard to say whether he could achieve the fruit of Tao with that method. He still had to walk the path of cultivation again and strengthen it step by step. Only then would he have the confidence to achieve the fruit of Tao. I'm going to Yi City in Heng State to find senior brother Qi Jingyan. Brother Bai, are you interested in going with me? Zhenwu sent such a big thing, so the world would definitely pay attention to it. If he stayed here and was seen by the Shaolin monks, what would they do? Should he destroy the Thunderblade Furious Monk's kung fu? In order to not embarrass everyone, little Meng had to run away. Heng State? It's not far from Divine Capital of River East. I'm going to Divine Capital. It's on the way, so I'll go with you to Heng State. Heng State. Some interesting things happen there. Since he had nothing to do, he might as well go and have a look. Chapter 804. After the discussion, they left Xuanwu City directly. He found a passenger boat at the pier by the river and went all the way down the river to Heng Province. At this moment, little Meng, who had grown out his hair, was wearing a white Confucian robe with a long sword at his waist and a scholar's hat on his head. Heng State is the border between the Huanhua Swords sect and the Wang family of River East. Senior brother Qi is in charge of foreign affairs in Yi City of Heng State. Let's go and take advantage of him. It was a huge passenger ship with 3 floors. The ship had a total of 3 floors, and each floor had many rooms. After defeating the horse gang in the Hanhai Sea, Little Meng was not short of money. He booked a suite on the top floor with 3 rooms and a living room. I can also live in a presidential suite. Little Meng was very satisfied with the suite. Little Meng and Bai Zhe sat in the living room and chatted while eating. It's suddenly cold outside? Just as they were talking, a sudden gust of cold wind blew in from the window, causing the room to feel chilly. He looked out of the window and saw a vast expanse of whiteness. Countless ice floes floated on the river as if winter had arrived. Snow in June. Little Meng was surprised. They were close to Hung State, which was the southern part of Central Land. Even in winter, there was only light snow in this place. It was the middle of summer. How could there be such a scene of frozen land? An exterior grandmaster made a move and caused a great change in the weather. Liu glanced out of the window and took a sip of the wine without a care. A fight between grandmasters? Little Meng remembered the battle between his master and the crying elder in the Immensity Sea. Now, the scene of snow in June was no longer strange. Knock, knock. Little Meng knocked on the table and shouted, "Boatman, what's the matter with the snow outside?" "Sir, I heard that a few days ago, Master Chui Qingyu of the Chui family of Pinjin fought with a mysterious grandmaster and caused a great change in the weather." The waiter outside the door answered. "The Chui family of Pinjin, I see." Little Meng nodded. Since it was the Chui family, it was not strange. The Chui family of Pinjin was the strongest family in Great Jin. Because they had Purple Chi from the East Chui Qinghe, a Dharmakaya master. The 14 clans of Central Earth. Among the aristocratic families of the state of Jin, the Chui family of Pinjin was the most powerful. They were even more powerful than the Zhao family of Shendu, which was a royal family. This was because they had a Dharmakaya master in their family. If the Zhao family of Luoyang did not rely on the Luoyang Grand Formation to contend with Dharmakaya masters, the Great Jin dynasty would already belong to the Chui family instead of the Zhao family. Even so, the Chui clan of Pinjin was fearless. Only the people of the Chui clan would do something like this in the most flourishing waterway in the world, causing frost to spread for 100 miles and destroying countless farmland. Chui family, Little Meng shook his head. He did not have a good impression of the Chui clan. However, this kind of tyrannical aristocratic family was not something that Little Meng could provoke. Even the family of this body, the Su family of the god's capital, was not even worthy of carrying shoes for such aristocratic families. Without another word, the ship continued forward. Not long after, they entered Hung State. After staying in the room for a long time, Little Meng decided to go out and take a breather. Bai Zhe went back to his room to sleep. Little Meng walked out of the suite alone and went downstairs to the first floor of the ship. There was a huge restaurant here. At this moment, there were sounds of fighting coming from the restaurant. Little Meng, who was feeling bored, wanted to watch the fun. He walked to the entrance of the restaurant. "Shan Xiumei, you can't escape today. Why don't you surrender and let me have some fun?" "Hee, Shan Xiumei, don't care about that brute. Let me take care of you." There was a man and a woman. One of them was a ferocious man, while the other was a beautiful woman. The two of them were surrounding a beautiful young girl with an aura as noble as a lotus. They attacked her while spitting out obscenities. "Iron Hand Devilman, Joy Devilman, I, Shan Xiumei, am not easy to bully." The girl with a lotus-like temperament was wearing a plain long dress. She held a red long sword in her hand, which emitted rays of light, and resisted the attacks of the two with difficulty. The 19 Devilmen of the Destruction Sect? How dare they attack Shan Xiumei, the Red Cloud Sword, in Hung State? Little Meng frowned slightly when he heard the names of the two parties. The Destruction Sect was the sect where the evil Master Han Guang belonged to. After the evil Master Han Guang faked his death and pretended to be the abbot of Shaolin, the Destruction Sect was not as powerful as before. These 19 Devilmen, who were not even of the exterior level, dared to make trouble in Hing State, where the righteous sects gathered. Did they want to die? As for the Red Cloud Sword, Shan Shumei, she was a famous heroine in the Three Mountains and Four Waters area where Little Meng got the title of Gentleman Sword. The reason she was famous was not because of her high kung fu, but because of her good looks. This is an era where looks matter. Little Meng smiled and shook his head. He reached for the hilt of the sword at his waist. The Destruction Sect and Shaolin were old rivals. Although Little Meng had been expelled from Shaolin, he still had his master and junior brothers in the temple. Little Meng naturally regarded Shaolin as his hometown. Just as he was about to attack, Little Meng suddenly saw a young man in a brocade robe across the restaurant, holding his sword with a righteous face. "Stop!" The man in the brocade robe shouted and pulled out the long sword at his waist. "How dare you be so arrogant? Lady Shan, let me help you." A surge of noble spirit suddenly rushed up. Little Meng suddenly felt like he was looking at Gu Chongqing. After a careful analysis, he found the difference between the two. Gu Chongqing's noble spirit was essentially sword qi. It was noble sword qi. The man in the brocade robe's noble spirit was genuine qi. There was a fundamental difference between the two. Noble spirit from the Wang family of River East. He's from the Confucian sect. The Wang family of River East was one of the 14 aristocratic families in the world. With such a person helping, there was no need for Little Meng to meddle. Just as everyone's attention was drawn to the man in the brocade robe, a scream suddenly came from a corner of the restaurant. Two young men who were sitting opposite each other and drinking were suddenly attacked. A drunkard who was lying on the table suddenly attacked. A pair of chopsticks flew out like lightning. A chopstick pierced the back of the head of a young man in a blue robe, killing him on the spot. The other chopstick quickly pierced the throat of a man in a blue robe. Unrelenting tower. The man in the blue robe jumped up and dodged the chopsticks. He broke the window of the restaurant and rushed into the river outside the ship. "You can't escape." The drunkard followed closely and also rushed into the river. As the water splashed, blood appeared on the river's surface. But no one knew who died. Master Wan. Master Tang. At this time, someone in the restaurant who knew the two young men who were attacked shouted out their identities in panic. At this time, Master Wang, who was fighting, injured the Joy Devilman with a sword. Retreat. With Master Wang's help, they couldn't do anything. The Iron Hand Devilman forced Shan Shumei back with one palm and shouted at the Joy Devilman. Bang! The Joy Devilman suddenly burst out a cloud of red mist and a sweet smell spread out. Poisonous smoke. The young master of the Wang family roared, but he had no choice but to stop. "Let's go." The two devilmen jumped out and rushed out of the door. Then, of all people, they rushed in Little Meng's direction. "Go away." Seeing Little Meng standing outside the door, the Iron Hand Devilman slapped him without hesitation. This is really an unexpected disaster. Everyone sighed. They only felt that this young Confucian scholar was really unlucky. He actually blocked the way of these devils when they were escaping. Wasn't he courting death? Chapter 805. Go to Hell. Iron Hand Devilman's palm was as fast as thunder. With the momentum, he slapped Little Meng. In Iron Hand Devilman's eyes, this was just an ordinary scholar in his teens. Even if he had a sword, it was just an ornament. Slapping a boy to death was enough to vent his anger. "Bastard! How dare you be so violent?" Seeing this innocent young scholar about to be killed, young Master Wang shouted angrily. He was angry and annoyed. Unfortunately, he was too far away and blocked by the poisonous smoke to save him. The Iron Hand Devilman must be properly punished. Only in this way can the noble spirit of the Wang family of Jiangdong be displayed. Young Master Wang held the sword hilt tightly. "I didn't come to you, and you dare to provoke me?" Little Meng snorted and unsheathed his long sword. A cold light flashed, like a bright star in the dark night sky. Puff, puff. Two sounds of a sharp blade piercing into flesh could be heard almost at the same time. Plop! Both Iron Hand Devilman and Joy Devilman were stabbed between their eyebrows. They fell to the ground and no longer made any sound. What's going on? Where did this young man come from? How could he be so strong? The two famous human devils were killed by a single sword strike just like that? It was like killing chickens. At this moment, the whole restaurant fell into silence. Everyone looked at each other with their mouths wide open. Sharpening a sword for 10 years, the frost blade has never been tested. Today, I will show my skills to the king. Who has an injustice? At this moment, little Meng, who liked to show his skills in front of people, naturally knew what to do. He flicked the long sword with his finger and it made a buzzing sound. His white clothes fluttered in the wind as he recited poems while flicking the sword. Anyone who saw him would praise him. What a young swordsman! However, looking at your swordsmanship, could you be the famous gentleman's sword Meng Qi? At this moment, Shan Xiumei, who was as beautiful as a lotus, uttered the name that made little Meng's face fall. Shan Xiumei came from the 3 mountains and 4 waters, where little Meng got the title of gentleman's sword. Holy sh*t. Little Meng felt depressed, but he had to put on a smile on his face. Then, he corrected his name again, Crazy Blade. Everyone in the restaurant was speechless. You're obviously using a sword, so why are you called Mad Blade? What kind of joke was this? Thank you, young master, for killing the murderous demon. Shan Xiumei bowed to little Meng and thanked her. I'm Wang Su from River East. I admire your extraordinary swordsmanship. That imposing young master of the Wang family walked up to little Meng and cupped his fists in greeting. Everyone has the right to punish evil and demonic cultivators. This humble one is actually better at using the saber. Little Meng was really sick of the title Gentleman's Sword. Wang Su spread out his hands to express, "Brother, I don't know what to say. Everyone, I still have important matters to attend to, so I will take my leave now." There was still a long way to go before he could change his nickname. Little Meng did not want to stay here any longer. Hearing the title Gentleman's Sword again was a form of torture for him. The noble sword was a curse. I don't even have a girlfriend. How can I be like old you? Little Meng cupped his fists in greeting and left the restaurant. He walked along the corridor outside the cabin. The wind from the river blew, and little Meng's gloominess dissipated. The 6-fan school created the Heaven, Earth, and Man list. If I want to change my nickname, I'm afraid I have to start with the 6-fan school. Little Meng suddenly had an idea. If he joined the 6-fan school, wouldn't it be very convenient to give himself a nickname? Let's do it. Little Meng clapped his hands hard. He planned to sneak into the 6-fan school and change his name. Of course, there was another reason. During this time, little Meng also learned about the Su family of Luoyang. The Su family was also one of the super arresters of the 6-fan school. Dong. Just then, a slight noise from the deck reached little Meng's ears. What's going on? Little Meng walked towards the source of the voice. He secretly gripped the hilt of his sword. Even the assassins of the unrelenting tower had appeared on this ship. He could not afford to be careless. Little Meng searched for a while and found a person near the corner of the deck. This person's clothes were tattered and he was covered in blood. Is this young Master Tang? Little Meng recognized him as the young Master Tang who had been assassinated earlier. He escaped from the unrelenting tower? He's not simple. The unrelenting tower, one of the 9 evil paths, was an assassin organization that was feared in the Jianghu. It was said that even grandmasters had been assassinated by the tower. You're lucky to have met me. I have a lot of healing items with me. When doing missions in the reincarnation space, healing items were a necessity. Little Meng took out a bottle of Jinchuang ointment and was about to save this young Master Tang. Just as he reached out his hand, he found that the man was already dead. You fought with your last breath to climb up. Your will to live is not bad. Unfortunately, it's a little too late. Little Meng sighed. Wielding a sword, riding on a horse, wielding the phantom rain. Bones piled up and birds flew away. The mortal world is like a tide and people are like water. How many people in the Jianghu can survive? In the Jianghu it was either killing or being killed. This kind of thing would never end. Little Meng suddenly found that this young Master Tang was wearing a mask made of human skin. But under the mask was a face full of scars. It was a horrifying face. With such a face, it was no wonder that he wore a mask. When completing a samsara task, don't show your true face. That way, don't expose your identity as a samsara traveler. I happen to have a use for this human skin mask. Little Meng took off the mask on young Master Tang's face and pushed him into the water. I don't want to provoke the assassins of the unrelenting tower. Every wrong has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. I only borrowed your mask and used it in the samsara dimension. I can't help you with your revenge. It was best not to provoke an assassin organization like the unrelenting tower. After all, it was too troublesome. After this episode, Little Meng was no longer in the mood to wander around. He turned around and returned to the suite. Brother Bai, aren't you asleep? Why are you up again? Little Meng had just entered the door and found Bai Zhe sitting in the living room. He was surprised. I heard a fight outside, so I took a look. Bai Zhe nodded faintly. In fact, he was thinking about young Master Tang, who had just been put into the resource vault. Yes, young Master Tang, who was pushed into the water by Little Meng, was put away by Li Yu. His spirit is still intact and his body is intact. I haven't really used the resurrection method I got from the Master God. This young Master Tang is also useful. It's a good opportunity to test it. Li Yu's resurrection spell included the 9 turns yang grass that he had obtained from the world of Emperor Huang, as well as the resurrection of the Lord. He hadn't tested this resurrection method yet. It was a good opportunity to test it on young Master Tang. After saying goodbye to Little Meng, Li Yu returned to the room. He waved his hand and used the method of the Master God to drive the power of rule. He injected young Master Tang's spirit into his body and reconstructed his body and spirit by injecting vitality. You're injured all over. I'll heal you while I'm at it. With a flash of light, young Master Tang's wounds were healed and he was fully recovered. I'll let him out when the time is right. Looking at the fully repaired and resurrected young Master Tang in the resource vault, Li Yu smiled. Little Meng will also use the identity of young Master Tang. When he finds out that the real young Master Tang is still alive, I'm sure Little Meng's expression will be very interesting. Chapter 806. The next morning, the junk ship arrived at the city of Hangzhou. When Little Meng walked out of the junk ship, he found that Wang Su and Shan Xiumei seemed to have fallen in love with each other and were traveling together. Damn! So fast? They just met and they're already hooking up? Little Meng frowned slightly at such a scene. He had a feeling that only the world he had come from before he had transmigrated had this kind of speed. Was this world also so open? Interesting. Li Yu glanced at Shan Xiumei in front of him, and a strange smile appeared on his face. Fairy of the 9th heaven? How interesting! With his realm, he naturally saw through Shan Xiumei's problem at a glance. Fairy of the 9th heaven practiced Sambhogakaya and had countless doppelgangers. Then, each doppelganger would find a sex stove to fall in love with, gathering thousands of love strands, and finally cut off the love strands to be heartless in order to achieve transcendence. This cultivation method is somewhat similar to that of Lu Mei in Wang Lin's world, the Thousand Illusions ruthless Tao. It was hard to have a good impression of this kind of person who played with people's feelings. Liu smiled and didn't bother to pay attention to Fairy of the Ninth Heaven. As long as you don't mess with me, you can find whoever you want to fall in love with. You can find as many people as you want to fall in love with. Eh? Is that Glacier Swordsman? Shan Xiumei stepped out of the cabin with Little Meng and was talking and laughing with Wang Su, the young master of the Wang family. She suddenly saw Bai Zhe and felt the cold and sharp breath from Bai Zhe. A strange light flashed in her eyes. Glacier Swordsman? The one who suddenly appeared first on the ranking list of young masters? Wang Su turned his head to look at Bai Zhe. He saw his white robe fluttering in the wind, handsome and elegant, and faintly revealed a sense of transcendence. Wang Su felt a little annoyed. I was showing off in front of a beauty and you came out like this. Are you trying to ruin my show? Even if you're first on the ranking list of young masters, you're nothing in front of the Wang family of River East. My servants are all of the exterior realm. They can easily crush you to death. Fortunately, the Glacier Swordsman had a cold face and completely disdained Shan Xiumei's beauty. He had no intention of greeting her, which made Wang Su secretly relieved. Young man, take care of yourself. You're already someone's reserved cultivation vessel. Liu glanced at them indifferently and laughed in his heart. He flicked his sleeves and walked forward, ignoring them completely. Senior Brother Qi is managing a rice shop? Little Meng asked around in the city and found where Qi Jingyan was. After a short while, they arrived at the flour-washing rice shop. All right, the great sex still need to eat. Although Little Meng felt that there was something wrong with the business style of the famous Jiang Hu. However, on second thought, real life was not a novel. Famous sex also had to eat, and doing business was very normal. I'm Manager Qi's cousin. Could I trouble you to pass on the message? When they arrived at the shop, Little Meng greeted the shop assistant. Manager Qi's cousin? Please come in. The assistant did not dare to delay and hurriedly led the two to the back hall to find Qi Jingyan. Cousin, I'm here to ask you for a future. Little Meng smiled strangely and winked at Qi Jingyan. Good that you're here. With the assistant present, Qi Jingyan nodded and led Little Meng and Bai Zhe to the living room in the back hall. Senior Brother Qi, let me introduce you. This is Brother Bai. Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe. Although Qi Jingyan had already mentioned Bai Zhe to his Samsara teammates, this was the first time he had seen Bai Zhe and was about to introduce him. The #1 martial arts legend on the ranking list of young masters. Your reputation is like thunder. Qi Jingyan looked at Bai Zhe with a fervent expression. The expression in his eyes seemed to be somewhat fervent. For Qi Jingyan, Bai Zhe was not from a famous sect, nor was he from an aristocratic family. For him to have such achievements was in line with his ideals. It's just a false reputation. Liu calmly waved his hand and glanced at Qi Jingyan. He smiled inwardly. This was the successor of the Devil Lord. When Little Meng rescued Monk Zhen Hui in the Immensity Sea, he had entered the Samsara space in the Fish Sea. During that mission, Little Meng received the Thunder God's Mark, Gu Shaosang received the Celestial Court Stone Tablet, and Qi Jingyan received the Devil Lord's Legacy. The Devil Lord's legacy comes from the bloodline. Right now, Qi Jingyan is at the critical moment of transforming his demon body. He can't use much strength yet. Of course, Liu did not care about the Devil Lord's legacy. But Qi Jingyan was an interesting person. This Qi Jingyan was a revolutionary. He wanted to revolutionize the world and bring fairness to the world. He wanted everyone to learn martial arts and be able to control their own destiny. He wanted all the people at the bottom to have the power to resist the powerful. Rise up, slaves who are hungry and cold. Rise up, people who are suffering all over the world. Your blood is boiling. Fight for the truth. Beat the old world to a pulp. Slaves, rise up, rise up. Liu began to sing the revolutionary song in his heart. A descendant of the Devil Lord, the biggest devil in the world, was determined to turn over a new leaf. It was simply too happy. Of course, this was the biggest devil's thought. Li Yu wouldn't dare to say such words even if he was beaten to death. What? Senior brother Qi was bullied? Your cousin's tendons and veins were cut off by a small family in Yi City? How dare they? While Li Yu's mind was filled with thoughts, Xiao Meng was talking to Qi Jingyan. Hearing Qi Jingyan say that his cousin was crippled by a small family in the city, Xiao Meng was furious. It's not just a small family. The Huanhua Swords sect and the Wang family of River East are fighting for the control of Yi City. The Yi family must have turned to the Wang family of River East. This matter involves the fight between the sect and the aristocratic families. I don't dare to provoke a dispute. If there was a direct conflict between the Huanhua Swords sect and the Wang family of River East, it would be a shocking event. This kind of private struggle between agents was normal. Neither side wanted to have a direct conflict. I see. Little Meng nodded. Let's not talk about these sad things. It's rare for us to get together today. Let's drink. Let's drink. Okay. Qi Jingyan smiled. I'm overjoyed to see you too. But the dishes are not ready yet. I need to prepare them. You don't have to go. You warm the wine. I'll buy some food. Little Meng patted his chest with a look that said, I have money. Then, he turned around and ran out of the rice shop to buy some food. Little Meng, you're still so forthright. Qi Jingyan did not doubt him. He picked up a copper pot, poured the wine, set up the stove, and began to warm the wine. Ha ha. Li Yu smiled and didn't say anything. In fact, Little Meng's trip was not as simple as buying food. He would be embarrassed to come back if he did not chop off some heads. Chapter 807. In less than 15 minutes, Little Meng returned. With a few lotus leaf pouches in his hand and a sword in his hand, he walked in with a smile. You're back so soon? Qi Jingyan was warming the wine when he spoke to Little Meng. Top-grade osmanthus wine. Not bad. Senior brother Qi hid such good stuff. Little Meng smelled the wine and nodded in admiration. He put down the lotus leaf bag and took out the marinated beef and braised pig head. I bought some food. Little Meng put a sword on the table and looked at Qi Jingyan with a smile. I also picked up a sword on the way. Qi Jingyan looked at the sword on the table and was shocked. His pupils constricted. He recognized the sword. It was the sword that had severed his cousin's tendons and tendons. It was the Yi family's tribute, Ghost Shadow Sword Li Sui. The sword was here and the person was here. Ghost Shadow Sword Li Sui, a 7 apertures master. It had only been 15 minutes, and he still had to buy food and wine. He had killed Ghost Shadow Sword in one move? Little Meng had become so powerful? The head has been taken, but the wine is not warm yet. Li Yu nodded at Little Meng. Not bad. You've improved a lot recently. After cultivating the mortal-immortal martial arts Li Yu had given him, Little Meng had only opened 6 apertures. Eye, ear, and nose. But his strength had improved greatly. A mere 7 apertures Ghost Shadow Sword could be cut down in one strike. You're all so powerful. If I don't work harder, I'll be left behind. Little Meng's words were sincere. Jiang Jiwei was already 10th on the ranking list of young masters. Gu Chongqing was only 20th, but that was because his achievements were not impressive. His strength was comparable to Jiang Jiwei's. Zhang Yuanshan had received the ancestral master's legacy. His sword qi would definitely improve greatly. As for Bai Zhe, there was no need to talk about him. Other than Qi Jingyan and Qi Jingyan, everyone else was about to soar. If they did not work hard, they would be left behind. I'm even weaker. Hearing the words abandoned by you, Qi Jingyan's eyes narrowed slightly, but he answered as if nothing had happened. Hee hee. Li Yu smiled faintly. The Devil Lord's successor would soon reconstruct his devil body and soar into the sky. If you're weak, others don't even need to live anymore. The three of them chatted, drank, and ate. Time slowly passed. During this period, the Yi clan came to cause trouble once. Then, Little Meng said, "Which eye of yours saw us killing people? How dare you slander the disciples of Huanhua Sword sect? Do you want to be enemies with our sect? You want to declare war on our sect?" The Yi family ran away with their tails between their legs. The next day, while Li Yu was meditating in a room in the backyard of the rice shop, organizing the 7 strokes of heaven interception that he had obtained from the Zhen Wu sect, a white-faced fatty came to the rice shop. This man was Lin Mu, the manager of the Huanhua Swords sect in Luoyi City. Qi Jingyan was the deputy, and Manager Lin was the supervisor. Today, Lord Tang V is holding a banquet in Flower Moon House. The Tang family is leaning toward us, so we have to give them face. Marshal Nephew Qi, let's go. Manager Lin instructed Qi Jingyan as soon as he entered the room. Okay. Since Qi Jingyan was one of the managers in E City, he naturally could not refuse. By the way, you have a cousin here? Well, and a young man in white? Let them go together. Before Manager Lin left, he seemed to have thought of something. He turned his head and said to Qi Jingyan. Well, hearing this, Qi Jingyan was a little embarrassed. If he wanted Little Meng to go, it would not be a problem. But he could not do anything about Bai Zhe. After all, he and Bai Zhe had just met. He could not make the decision for Bai Zhe. I want to see the heroes of E City. Of course, I can't miss this opportunity. At this time, Li Yu came out of the door and agreed with a smile. Seeing Li Yu's appearance, Qi Jingyan was slightly stunned. At this moment, Bai Zhe was like a completely different person from before. Not only was he no longer exuding a faint chill, he was no longer as cold as before. There was no trace of the glacier swordsman at all. Well, let's go together tonight. Manager Lin glanced at Li Yu and nodded indifferently. Then he turned and walked out of the rice shop. Brother Bai, Qi Jingyan, was a little confused by Bai Zhe's abnormality. He did not know what had happened. It's just returning to the original state. Li Yu smiled at Qi Jingyan and said the shocking news lightly. Returning to the original state? How could Qi Jingyan, who had inherited the Devil Lord, not know what returning to the original state meant? After the completion of 9 apertures, the hidden latch would be condensed, and the oneness of heaven and men would be achieved. After that, it would be a leap to the exterior. At this moment, Glacier Swordsman was no longer emitting chill. He had indeed returned to the original state. He was only 1 step away from the exterior. Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe is indeed first on the ranking list of young masters. He is already ahead of all his peers. Although Qi Jingyan was shocked, he did not lose confidence. As long as his devil body was rebuilt, he would soon soar to the top and be no worse than them. A day passed quickly. In the evening, Qi Jingyan, young Meng, and Bai Zhe took a carriage and went all the way to Floral Moon Tower. Manager Lin, Manager Qi, and the 2 young heroes, please come in. Please come in. As soon as they got out of the carriage, Lord Tang V greeted them with a smile. He led them all the way upstairs to a private room. At the door of the room was a bald old man. Seeing this person, young Meng's eyes narrowed slightly. This person is in the realm of 9 apertures. This is Tang Shu, the elder of the Tang family. He's in the realm of 9 apertures and has extraordinary strength. Qi Jingyan transmitted a message to young Meng and Bai Zhe, introducing the bald old man. 9 apertures? Young Meng nodded and did not care. It was not like he had never killed a 9 apertures master before. Besides, with Brother Bai here, he could even kill an exterior master. Young Master Meng? As soon as they entered the room, young Meng, who was at the back, had not entered completely. At this moment, a group of young men and women walked out of a private room next door. Young Master Meng, the gentleman's sword. Among them, a man and a girl saw young Meng and shouted in surprise. Damn it! Young Meng was depressed when he heard this name. To be able to call out this name, they must be from the 3 mountains and 4 waters. So you're the gentleman's sword? You value righteousness more than money. You're a man of your word. You're a chivalrous man. We admire you. The young men and women's eyes lit up as if they had seen their idol. Well, they're fans. Even if young Meng did not like the name Gentleman's Sword, he could only smile. Young Master Meng, I'm Tang Mingyue. At this moment, a girl with bright eyes and white teeth wearing a pearl on her head bowed to young Meng with a smile. Then, she transmitted a message to young Meng. Young Master Meng, 5th uncle has surrendered to the Wang family. Under the orders of the Yi family, he wants to kill you to prove his allegiance. The 4 families each sent a 9 apertures master. The Yi family is preparing to kill you. Hearing this, young Meng's heart tightened, but his face did not change. He smiled and said goodbye to the young men. I have something to do. See you next time. Stepping into the room, young Meng transmitted a message to Qi Jingyan and Bai Zhe. Hongmen banquet. Ha ha! Qi Jingyan and Bai Zhe looked at each other and sneered. In Yi City, a 9 apertures master was a top master. With Bai Zhe, the number 1 on the ranking list of young masters, a 9 apertures master was nothing. He could kill an exterior master. Chapter 808. So Chief Steward Qi's cousin is the famous gentleman's sword. As soon as little Meng entered the room, Lord Tang V greeted him with a smile. You're indeed a young hero. Come, let's toast to this gentleman's sword. Even though Lord Tang V said that, he did not really care about the gentleman's sword or whatever. The famous gentleman's sword in the 3 mountains and 4 waters region was only at the 6 apertures level. How powerful could a mere 6 apertures be? Did he think everyone was like Fairy of the extinctive sword Jiang Jiwei, who could sever 9 apertures with 6 apertures level? Lord Tang V sneered in his heart, but on the surface, he raised his wine glass with a smile. You flatter me, Lord Tang V. Little Meng smiled and shook his head as if he was embarrassed. However, he could only raise his glass in response to Lord Tang V's toast. At this moment, everyone was raising their glasses to this young hero. Gentleman's sword. Then, the moment he raised his glass, killing intent burst out. Boom! The bald old man, Tang Shu, who had perfected 9 apertures, took the opportunity to attack little Meng with a ferocious look on his face. The wind from his palm surged and a strong wind surged. The wind from his palm contained a gust of cold and scorching heat. The cold and heat intertwined and formed a spiral that whistled through the air. This was Tang Shu's unique skill, the yin and yang spiral palm. The palm contained the power of yin and yang, which was impossible to defend against. The strength of a 9 apertures expert was undoubtedly revealed. However, Tang Shu's attack was only one of many. Bang! The window shattered, and a bright saber light swept over like a waterfall. The cold blade whistled through the air, and the sharp wind seemed to tear everything in front of it apart. Boom! At the same time, the wooden wall behind little Meng exploded with a loud bang. A pitch-black, ice-cold spear, like a poisonous dragon coming out of its cave or a prairie fire, blocked all of Meng Qi's escape route. Tang Shu, the machete man, and the gunman, 3 9 apertures experts, surrounded little Meng at the same time. Even though the gentleman's sword was somewhat famous, in these people's eyes, the 3 9 apertures masters would definitely be able to kill him. Little Meng was attacked, so were Qi Jingyan and Bai Zhe. Lord Tang V and Manager Lin, who were sitting next to Qi Jingyan, suddenly attacked at the same time. Kill! Lord Tang V struck out with his palms. The wind generated by his palms was like stormy waves, one after another. It was like a surging river with endless waves. "Brat Chi, you shouldn't meddle." Manager Lin's expression was ferocious as he made his move as well. His right hand turned into a claw like a tiger's claw and struck at Qi Jingyan's major acupoint on his back. As for Bai Zhe, there were naturally people to deal with him. Swish! A slender and narrow sword pierced towards Bai Zhe's back. There was a smear of blood on the sword, reflecting the bright moon. It was poignant and beautiful. He was also a 9 apertures master. After returning to his natural state, Bai Zhe, who had been acting like an ordinary person, was still looked down upon. They only sent a 9 apertures master to attack. Killing intent burst forth all of a sudden. This was a well-prepared ambush. Moreover, it was a sneak attack by a 9 apertures master. If one was caught off guard, there was no way to defend against it. In the eyes of these people, Qi Jingyan and the other 2 were doomed to die. Humph! Little Meng's long sword suddenly came out of its sheath. It flashed like a cold star and instantly pointed at a point in Tang Shu's cold and hot palm power. Boom! When the sword pointed out, cold and hot intertwined. The spiral-like palm wind suddenly exploded and completely collapsed. This sword was the solitary sword, Qi-breaking style. After dispersing his internal strength and genuine Qi, Tang Shu's palm was no longer a threat. Little Meng's long sword swept out like an angry dragon raising its head. It stabbed diagonally upward and met the bright blade light. Solitary sword, Qi-breaking style. The blade light, like a waterfall, was cut off. The sword stabbed at the key point of the flow of the force and broke the knife momentum. With the rebound force of the collision, the long sword drew an arc and slashed behind Little Meng's back. Behind Little Meng, a dark and cold long spear stabbed fiercely at his back like a poisonous snake sticking out its tongue. Clang! The sound of the spear and the sword colliding rang out. The black spear, like a poisonous snake, seemed to have been hit at its weakest point. The spear move instantly collapsed. This was the solitary sword, Qi-breaking style. At this moment, the sword light whistled and lightning flashed. Little Meng's figure floated in the air. In the blink of an eye, Little Meng had defeated 3 9 apertures masters in a row. He deserved the title of Gentleman's Sword. Well, the second part. Little Meng said he could ignore it. At the same time, Qi Jingyan, who was suddenly attacked, suddenly flashed a rose-red halo, like a light shield protecting him. Lord Tang V's palm strike and Manager Lin's tiger claw were like clay oxen disappearing into the sea. They dissipated under the influence of the red light screen. Humph! You're courting death. At this time, Qi Jingyan naturally did not care about exposing the Book of the Chaos. He blocked their attacks with the rosy afterglow swing. He clapped his right palm and used the azure snow. A layer of frost condensed and spread quickly, as if winter was coming. It froze the hibiscus soup, vinegar fish, Nuerhong, the ground, and the table. It spread to Master Tang V and Manager Lin. In an instant they were frozen into ice sculptures. The Book of the Chaos is really something. Li Yu, who was sitting on the side of the table, did not care about the small and narrow sword stabbing at his back. Instead, he praised Qi Jingyan's Book of the Chaos. When the long sword was about to pierce his back, Li Yu flicked his finger on the narrow sword. Bang! A powerful force rushed out, and the person who attacked from behind was sent flying, smashing the wooden wall behind him. Little Meng, don't hold back, Qi Jingyan said to Little Meng after freezing Master Tang V and Manager Lin. What he meant was that there was no need to keep them alive for interrogation. Just kill them. After that, Qi Jingyan jumped up and faced the Saberman in front of him. He used the white cloud smoke. A cloud of smoke rose and shrouded the Saberman, making him lose his 5 senses. Okay, Little Meng answered. His long sword vibrated with a clang. Cold stars broke through the air like lightning. Dugu sword, palm-breaking style. Xiao Chen thrust out his sword and pierced Tang Shu's throat, who had just broken the palm strike and still had not caught his breath, dying an unnatural death. Puff! Little Meng was about to deal with the gunman behind him when he suddenly heard the sound of something breaking through the air. Bai Zhe, who was still sitting at the table, flicked his finger. A wine cup whizzed up and hit the gunman's chest as fast as lightning. The wine in the cup surged, and an extremely cold chi swept out. The gunman was instantly frozen into an ice sculpture. Clang! Little Meng turned around and stabbed. The saber man, shrouded in the white cloud smoke, had already lost his 5 senses. There was no way he could dodge the sword. The sword pierced his heart. Clang! At this moment, a sword whistled through the air. The swordsman, who was flicked away by Li Yu, held a long sword glowing with purple light. The blade was light purple, and the sharp chi was almost solid. The swordsman unleashed all his genuine chi and slashed with the sword. A beam of sword chi shot out. It was purple-red and whistled through the air. It was so powerful that it tore through the sky. A precious weapon. This purple long sword was a precious weapon with the power of the exterior. Chapter 809. It's not the exterior. At most, it's half-step. Li Yu shook his head with a smile. With the strength of the 9 apertures realm, he could only exert the power of the half-step exterior scenery by activating a precious weapon. It didn't mean that he could have the power of the exterior with a precious weapon. With Li Yu's strength, this little bit of attack couldn't even withstand a breath from him. However, with the strength of Bai Zhe, it couldn't be so strong. My sword is also a precious weapon. He reached out to pull out the glacier sword at his waist. The cold air surged as if it was going to freeze everything in the world. Icy holy light. The sword rushed to the sky. The blue cold light broke through the air and went straight to the sky. The extreme cold swept up and the whole floral moon tower was covered with a thick layer of frost. Flying snow all over the sky. Endless frost. At this moment, there was only endless cold between heaven and earth. Flowers and trees were frozen. Houses and buildings were frozen. Even the earth was frozen. Even the purplish-red sword chi had been frozen. The swordsman who wielded the purple-red long sword and chopped out a precious weapon sword chi was frozen into an ice sculpture together with his sword. That's when this icy sword chi soared into the sky. The whole E-city seemed to have turned from midsummer to winter. Snowflakes fluttered all over the sky. Countless people in the city were dumbfounded. The exterior. This is the power of the exterior. Which exterior master is attacking in E-city? It doesn't seem like the exterior. The scope of the change is very small, and the power doesn't reach the level of the exterior. All the Wuling heroes in E-city saw the change of the weather and started to talk about it. Not the exterior, but with such a cold sword chi, he must be Glacier Swordsman, number 1 on the ranking list of young masters. Seeing the cold sword chi rushing to the sky and the scene of flying snow, the identity of this person was obvious. Except for Glacier Swordsman, who was number 1 on the ranking list of young masters. Glacier Swordsman has come to E-city? The arrestor of the 6 fan school in E-city frowned when he saw the icy sword chi soaring into the sky. The Wang family of River East is competing with the Huanhua Swords sect, and Glacier Swordsman is here again. What an eventful season. Damn it! Opposite the Floral Moon Brothel, the 3rd young master of the Yi clan was sitting by the window, watching the show. Because all these changes in E-city were caused by this guy. Originally, according to his plan, the 2 managers of the Huanhua Swords sect would be killed by the Wang family. The Wang family of River East and the Huanhua Swords sect were bound to clash. However, the moment this icy sword chi soared into the sky, the 3rd young master of the Yi clan knew that all his plans had failed. Damn it! Glacier Swordsman, what was he doing here? Can't you just eat sand in the desert? What are you doing in the Central Plains? Third young Master Yi smashed the table in front of him. He was furious. Chi. A chuckle resounded in the room, and a beautiful woman with a seductive figure walked out, swaying gracefully. Thousand Face, Glacier Swordsman has come to E-City. I'm afraid your plan can't be carried out. You'd better leave E-City quickly. The beautiful woman smiled sweetly at third young Master Yi as she reminded him. No. I won't let it go. Third young Master Yi's face was ferocious. Damn Glacier Swordsman. I'm still waiting for the Wang family and the Huanhua Swords sect to clash, destroy E-City, and inflict heavy losses on the four families. With this blood sacrifice, Evil God can break through the bottleneck and step into the realm of the real gods. There won't be a conflict. The beautiful woman shook her head. Let's leave here and think of another way. No, I've been planning for so long. I'm not willing to leave just like this. Even if I can't sacrifice the whole city, I'm still confident about the Yi family. As long as Evil God breaks through, I don't care about this body of mine. If I change my appearance, who can find me? Third young Master Yi's face was full of ruthlessness, and his eyes were emitting a green flame. If you want to continue, I won't accompany you in your nonsense. The beautiful woman waved her hand. Our destruction sect is not as powerful as before since our sect master disappeared. Thousand-Face Devilman, I can't handle this matter if it gets out of hand. I'll leave with Iron Hand Devilman right away. Glacier Swordsman Bai Zhe had come to E-City. He was a guy who could even kill an exterior expert. If she dared to stir up trouble in front of such a peerless master, she would be courting death. Joy Devilman felt that she hadn't lived long enough and didn't want to court death. If you want to leave, then leave. I'll handle this matter myself. Third young Master Yi snorted coldly and waved his hand, ignoring this joyful Devilman. Humph, you don't know what's good for you. Joy Devilman snorted and turned to leave. In Joy Devilman's opinion, third young Master Yi's brain was damaged by evil spirit cultivation. As a member of the evil path, the most important thing was to know how to withdraw in time. Otherwise, it was the road to death. Iron Hand, let's go. Joy Devilman called out. An 8-foot-tall muscular man walked out of the darkness. He nodded at Joy Devilman and walked out of the tavern together. Clang, as soon as they stepped out of the tavern, a sword whistled and a bone-chilling sword chi soared into the sky. The blue sword light, with extreme coldness, tore through the sky and chopped down at Joy Devilman and Iron Hand Devilman, who had just stepped out of the tavern. Glacier Swordsman! Joy Devilman screamed. Her face was pale and cold sweat broke out all over her body. Iron Hand, stop him! After yelling at Iron Hand, Joy Devilman turned around and ran away. This was Glacier Swordsman. Glacier Swordsman who could even kill an exterior expert. Joy Devilman, with a mere 9 apertures cultivation, didn't dare to confront Glacier Swordsman. I'll let Iron Hand, this brainless guy, take the blame first. I'll run first. This response was indeed correct. Unfortunately, Glacier Swordsman was more terrifying than she had imagined. He chopped out with his sword and froze the earth. Joy Devilman, who had just run a few steps, felt cold all over and her vision turned black. She was instantly frozen into an ice sculpture. Brother Bai, this is... Little Meng and Qi Jingyan ran out and looked at each other when they saw the scene. Brother Bai suddenly rushed out of the floral moon tower and chopped at the two. What was going on? I just sensed that the spirit of the swordsman with the precious weapon seemed to be controlled by someone. Through the sensing of his spirit, I found that the mastermind is here. Bai Zhe calmly sheathed his sword. These two should be Joy Devilman and Iron Hand Devilman from the Destruction sect. Little Meng was stunned. Didn't I kill Joy Devilman and Iron Hand Devilman? He remembered that on the ship, Joy Devilman and Iron Hand Devilman attacked Red Cloud Sword Shanxiume and then came to provoke him. He had no choice but to kill them. But, the two people in front of him were also Joy Devilman and Iron Hand Devilman? Ha ha! Zay shook his head with a smile. Are you sure you killed Joy Devilman and Iron Hand Devilman? That was their show. You didn't even know that you messed it up. A show. Little Meng was not stupid. Thinking of Shan Xiumei and Wang Su's identity, he instantly understood the reason. Saving a damsel in distress was the best way to strike up a conversation. Shan Xiumei was trying to lure a rich husband. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.